Were you not entertained by such an incredible wild card weekend of NFL football? We've got 4 incredible football games to react to and 2 other football games to react to from this weekend. We're going to go in order of when these games happened, starting with the Panthers-Rams game and finishing with the Texans-Steelers game that, as I just found out before this recording, has resulted in Mike Tomlin stepping away. So obviously, so much to break down from this weekend. I've got a bunch of notes, so let's go ahead and get started. If you could, please hit that like button as we do begin here. It really does help me out. But like I said, we're going to begin with the Panthers game. Rams at Panthers. I was so thankful to be at this football game in Charlotte. The stadium, the city came alive. Thank you to today's sponsor, SeatGeek, for hooking me up with tickets for this game. But man, just from the pregame, the tailgating at the French Quarter, to pregame, live music inside the stadium. Cam Newton comes out and bangs the drum. You can't have it any better. And shout out to the Carolina Panthers, who nobody took seriously as a playoff team in these playoffs, and they come out and really make this a hell of a football game. It had a legitimate chance to send the Rams packing. So let's do what we're going to do for these first 4 games, where I really just kind of took notes about the process of how the game went. Once we get to those kind of defensive slugfests that happened later in Wildcard Weekend, the kind of script of how we talk about these games is going to change a little bit. But yeah, this game started really, I think, how you thought it would go, where the Rams were 10.5-point favorites. Myself, and I think a lot of people, have held the opinion that the Rams are probably the most complete team in these NFL playoffs, and the Panthers are certainly the least experienced, the one with the worst record, and the biggest underdog this weekend as well. So you didn't really expect this to be too much of a ball game, and to begin, that's what we saw. The Panthers get the ball first. Not a great start. They do go for it on 4th down, which is definitely the right approach from Canales, to come out and know that they are big underdogs in this game. I think you kind of have to ride that line of variance and add some random factors to the game and hope that things go your way and you can execute in some of these high leverage situations. And you also know heading into the game that if that's going to be your approach and you don't execute on what was, I think, of like a 4th and 3 from about their own 45 or 50-yard line, if you do screw that up, you don't convert, you're going to set yourself up to maybe get killed in a game like this. So they go for it. Bryce ends up rolling right and has a slight window, but Quentin Lake, our guy on this channel, dives in for a big pass breakup. So the Rams take over, and very quickly you see a Sean McVay kind of brilliant play design. They get a touchdown to Puka Nacua, which was really clever. He's lined up at running back from a trips left shotgun formation, and they anticipate getting cover 3. The Panthers run about as much cover 3 as anybody in the league, and they don't have the best linebackers either. So the Rams dialed up probably a play that they knew as soon as they got down into the red zone, if they can get cover 3, they're going to push this button, and it was perfectly executed. They go trips left, basically purely as a disguise with the way that this play was designed, where it's going to look like Matthew Stafford's first read is essentially to like a 4 verts or maybe a flood, but all 3 receivers running largely vertical down the field to the left sideline, all with the intention of trying to draw that single high free safety over, with Matthew Stafford staring it down, holding the safety with his eyes, and then take that second hitch, get to that second read, and hopefully Puka Nacua running just a seam route right out of the backfield, lined up at running back, is able to just run right past the linebackers, the safety who doesn't think there's a threat, into the middle of the field because of the play design to that trip side, bails out, and you get this wide open hole into the end zone. Just excellent play design, anticipating tendencies. That's what makes Sean McVay. So a great start there. And then the Rams force a punt on the ensuing drive. Things continue to look like they're getting even worse. They get a little bit of help on that next Panthers drive because Ikem Ekwonu technically gives up a sack, but it's on a play where his ACL just gives out. So I think it was Verse probably. No, I think it was actually Josiah Stewart was kind of bull rushing him a little bit, and Ekwonu just goes backwards. Bryce is forced to step up. He ends up getting sacked, and then on a 3rd and long, they tried a double move to T-Mac on that drive against Emmanuel Forbes, and I like the look. Unfortunately, Bryce just wasn't able to hit him. He overthrows him on that play. One of Bryce's few kind of bad dropbacks in this game, as we're gonna kind of get to here. Bryce Young was awesome in this game. Better watching it back on film even than it felt watching him live. But yeah, I like the look. I think that's a matchup you like. T-Mac runs a good double move on Emmanuel Forbes, who likes to jump stuff underneath. He gets a step, and Bryce just overthrows. So you end up having to punt off the heels of that. The Panthers defense does get a really nice stop. Derek Brown blows up a play on a 3rd and 1, so the Rams punt. Panthers start driving, trying to come back in this game, but man, another just mistake, frankly. Unfortunate mistake where they're driving, but Bryce trying to hit an in-breaking route that, as we would find out later in the game, was available all day long. Jalen Coker, young receiver, missed a lot of time this year. He stops his route. Bryce ends up throwing it right into the teeth of the defense where he thought Coker was going to be, so it gets intercepted. And again, you're like, man, they got stuffed on a 4th down. You've got kind of a miscommunication interception type of deal. Like, things are just not going well for the Panthers in what they needed to happen early in this game. And sure enough, the Rams come right back off of that interception. They go up 14-0, really on just kind of a nice drive with some screens and a insane touchdown from Puka Nacua, just catching the ball on a tunnel screen or a bubble screen and just weaving through like 5 Panthers defenders to go up 14-0 here. And that's where the life in the stadium was definitely starting to fade a little bit. Because like I said, there was a world where this game got out of hand and the Panthers got blown out. And people were, heading home to watch the night game around the second half. But that really is where the Panthers strapped in and said, no, it's not how this game is going to go. And really, Bryce Young, from that point onward, was exceptional, man. I mean, ton of credit to Bryce Young in that critical moment, that pivotal point in this game where this team could have ran out of life down 14-0. He comes out with an excellent drive, just 3 big plays, back to back to back, bang, bang, bang. First off, he eludes a sack, rolls left, finds Jalen Coker down the left sideline for about 15 yards. The very next play, he hits T-Mac down the right sideline on a 15-yard comebacker off of play action. So you get a little play extension play in there. You get a perfectly executed in-structure throw in there. Then right after that, in structure again, he hits T-Mac again on a 20-yard dig route there. I love the aggressiveness from Dave Canales to open things up still in the second quarter here. They could have, done what they've done at parts in this season and kind of shelter up and be like, no, we're a running football team. We need to establish the run if we're going to come back in this game. No, they said, look, if this is going to happen, it's going to be Bryce Young opening this thing up. It's going to be T-Mac and Jalen Coker making plays, and that's exactly what they did. They get it down right by the goal line. Chuba Hubbard punches it in, and it's like, all right, let's see where this goes. So the Rams do respond to that with a field goal. They get kind of another big busted coverage up the middle of the seam. Big throw to the tight end. They end up with a field goal, though, because Mike Jackson, who had an excellent game for the Panthers here, makes one of several excellent plays that he made in this game. On a 3rd and 3, they try a back shoulder to Davante Adams, and big 6'1", 215-pound Mike Jackson at corner there just kind of keeps Davante up above ground, shoves him out of bounds, incomplete pass. The Rams decide to kick the field goal there, again, to go up 17-7. Unfortunately, right after that, the Panthers get the ball back, and this is probably, if you're looking back on this game, maybe the biggest opportunity from an offensive perspective for the Panthers, other than the very last game-winning drive opportunity. But they obviously just went on that big drive. They end up with a 3rd and 2, and Bryce tries a swing pass to Chuba Hubbard that they just don't connect on. It was a little bit too far in front of. I think Chuba should have caught it. And there was a lot of green grass. There was a linebacker. It was one of those nice plays where the left side of the field, everybody's kind of clearing out. The cornerbacks all match that down the field. And then you end up with a linebacker seeing the running back kind of leak into the flat. We saw a big completion like this in the Niners game to Juszczyk in the same situation, where the linebackers are kind of late getting over and there's a lot of green grass, and Bryce just kind of floats it out there. They don't connect. It hits the ground. Probably could have been about a 20-yard completion and a big moment before half there. So that was definitely a bummer. They end up having to punt. But then the Rams gave them a couple gifts here in this 5-minute range right before the half. It was kind of a weird point in the game where nobody really wanted to take advantage of each other's mistakes, because we obviously mentioned the drop there, but you'll see how this kind of plays out. It's like you make a mistake, then we make a mistake. So after that drop, the Rams get a chance to really put this game away before half, make it maybe 24-7, and Davante Adams cooks whoever was in coverage on him on the left sideline. Classic Adams go ball. He's got 2 steps of separation, and Matthew Stafford just overcooks it by about two yards. And it would have been at least a 40-yard completion, because that's where it would have been about where he got caught or where he caught the ball. But the free safety, it was against cover 3 or cover 1. The free safety's making his way over. He had an angle, but Davante Adams is capable of slipping that guy. If he slips that free safety out in space, I mean, that could have been an 80-yard touchdown. I don't want to say easily, but it certainly could have been. So the Rams kind of give them a gift there. It is worth noting that early in the game, Stafford did hit his thumb, so that could have impacted some of the accuracy on some of these plays. I'm not going to really put much stock into that, just for that reason, but it happens. So the Panthers end up forcing a punt off of that, but right away, they fumble the punt. They screw up on special teams. The Rams get the ball right back, but then the Rams don't execute, taking over basically around the area where Davante would have been tackled down anyway. And they can't finish it off. They end up with a 4th and 2. The Panthers defense holds. They got a brilliant call from Ejiro Evero on a 4th and 2 there, where it's a simulated pressure look where they end up rushing 4, but one of the rushers is a blitzing safety, Trayvon Merrick, who beats the running back in protection simultaneously with our guy, Nick Scorton, who kind of rounds out around the right tackle. And then the Panthers dropped the other side of the defensive line into coverage. So it's still a standard 7-man protection, but a simulated pressure. So against the pressure that they got off the right side, Stafford steps up and thinks he's got the tight end sitting down in the zone coverage, but coming from the back side of the coverage, hey, DJ Wonnum made an excellent play, maybe the best play of his season. A diving pass breakup from the backside of the field. Really nice veteran play by DJ Wonnum. So the Panthers survive that big punt return mistake that against a team like the Rams, that's supposed to cost you. But they get some plays in their favor and execute in some of these big moments to keep this thing close. And then right after that, Bryce Young, I mean, again, easily could have gone 3 and out. The Rams still have time to go put more points on the board. But no, Bryce executes some incredible plays, man. He drops a beauty to Jalen Coker on a nice play design by Dave Canales, hitting Jalen Coker on a wheel route on a scissors concept where the post kind of clears out the corner, and then the slot corner's trying to run with Jalen Coker. Bryce puts it right over the shoulder, gets it to him, big completion, and then a few plays later, Bryce Young has maybe the best scramble of his career, certainly up there. He steps up, makes the linebacker miss, gets into the end zone, and that's when the stadium really was into it, man. I mean, that makes it 14-17 with like 30 seconds to go in the half, and it just felt like this Panthers team was hanging with this Rams team. And especially like right after the punt return fumble and after that drop on third down, like there was a lot of just like, classic Panthers. But no, Bryce drags them back from those moments a couple times in this game. I just really can't give Bryce Young enough credit for how well he stepped up in this game. Everything you could have asked for him really to this point in this game, other than missing T-Mac on that go ball and what would have been a huge throw. But right before half still, though, we're still in the first half of this game. Like, this is how good of a game this was. This much was happening. But the Panthers get a busted coverage, and Puka Nacua, well, not even a busted coverage, but Puka Nacua beats his man down the right sideline, and he's got a couple steps on the DB, and Stafford puts it right on him, literally on his face, and Puka Nacua clanks what, again, would have been, I don't want to say a dagger of a touchdown, but it would have sucked the life out of that stadium if Puka catches that, goes into the end zone with no time left after Bryce put that drive together. So the Panthers get a huge break there. Just a couple of big mistakes by Stafford overthrowing Davante and Puka dropping that what really would have been a walk-in touchdown, knowing Puka Nacua. I don't think the DB trailing from behind him was going to get him down to the ground with about 10 to 15 yards to go. So a couple of big mistakes from the Rams, and we get to the second half, and the Panthers still have a lot of work to do here because the Rams start with the football. They'd really been moving the ball mostly all day, and the Panthers get just some standout pass coverage plays from that cornerback duo that has really emerged as one of the better cornerback duos in the league. J.C. Horn and Mike Jackson. Mike Jackson, who had the big pass breakup earlier in this game. Both Jackson and J.C. Horn trade off just excellent coverage plays, both on Davante Adams, both textbook pass interferences where they get their head around, find the ball, play physical tight coverage, but not flags. And that leads to a punt out the gate for the Rams. And then Bryce takes over. Yet again, it's 3rd and 10. You're facing this Rams pass rush, which is one of the better ones in the league. It's still like, man, so many times Bryce Young gets in these 3rd and 10s and he can't find the receiver or he looks too small in the pocket. No, he stands tall in the pocket, as tall as he can at 5'9", and he hits T-Mac on a perfect throw to on the dig route to keep the drive alive. They move the ball down the field. They end up actually with a 4th and 2 right at the 30-yard line. Again, down by 3 at this point, and they end up kicking the field goal for the tie there. I think they should have gone for it. You've captured a lot of momentum in this game. Bryce is playing really well at this point. I think they got a little bit away from that underdog mentality because now you're in the second half and the game is close and it's easier to be a little bit more conservative. I can't slam them for kicking the field goal, tying the game up, keep your momentum going. But I almost think leaning into that momentum to try to go and play with that confidence to take the lead on this defense that you're now moving the ball pretty well against might have been the better decision there. But they tie it up. The Rams answer right back with a field goal of their own. Panthers then have to punt again. And then just when you're kind of thinking like, man, Rams are in a pretty good position here, 20-17. They got the ball. We're right into the fourth quarter now. This is where the Rams are going to pull away. Mike Jackson picks off Matthew Stafford after a nice stunt, ends up getting some pressure. I thought Ejiro Evero in some big spots in this game, that 3rd down right here where you get this pick from Mike Jackson, the 4th down earlier, there was some moments in this game where Ejiro Evero and his scheming prowess really showed up because they weren't getting a whole lot of one-on-one wins. They had to be creative with their pass rush to make Stafford feel even a little bit uncomfortable in this game, and they did at times make Stafford feel uncomfortable. So Evero deserves a lot of credit for some of the game planning stuff here, but they get the big pick, man, and then Bryce takes over and still has a lot of work to do, down 3, and another just high-level quarterbacking play from Bryce Young where he slides in the pocket, the pressure gets in, but the pocket presence was working in this game, man. He felt it. He slid to the right. He didn't panic. He stays with the play, and he hits Jalen Coker in stride on a crossing route that goes for about 40 yards. Just an awesome high leverage play, and that sets them up right down close by the goal line. They end up pounding it in with their run game. Chuba Hubbard gets it in for his second touchdown. So the Panthers have the lead now in the fourth quarter. But Stafford and the Rams put together a really nice touchdown drive. There was a big play on that drive that could have maybe been the dagger in this game. Not a great throw from Stafford. I don't know if it was miscommunication or he overcooked it, but he's targeting Puka deep to the right front of the end zone. And I think it was Chau Smith-Wade. It could have been Nick Scott. It was probably Nick Scott, actually, because it would have been the safety, I think, playing over the top. But it's in his hands, and Puka converts to the DB. Just, man, Puka's awareness and just football IQ, it's off the charts, man. For the guy that was kind of getting made fun of because he didn't know, like, that the Rams play in the NFC West, and, like, there was some noise about, like, you know, does he really know, like, the game and the NFL? Like, there was some commentary about that earlier in his career. I mean, he very much understands situational football in so many ways, and this was another example. Just the biggest of plays, man. It could have saved their season. Was definitely going to be an interception, but Puka comes in, punches it out, plays the DB. It's the reason Stafford trusts him so much. So huge play. They then are able to convert that drive for a touchdown. And then you fast forward a little bit. You know, the Panthers were outmatched in this game. So you do end up with the Panthers getting stopped on the next drive. But Panthers get a stop on the ensuing drive, and they don't just get a stop, they get a blocked punt in just the biggest of spots. There's 4 minutes left. They're down by 3. The Rams are punting it away, saying, Bryce, go beat us. And, man, they get set up on the 30-yard line. Isaiah Simmons gets through there, gets a hand on it, blocks the punt. And not long after that block, Bryce throws another absolute dime on a corner fade route to Jalen Coker. Just beautiful touch, right over the shoulder. The crowd goes nuts. The Panthers have the lead at this point with 2.5 minutes to go. And you're just in disbelief that the Panthers are getting a stop, being the team that blocks the punt late in the game, that Bryce is playing as well as he has in this game, man. Like, it was just such a confidence-building moment, I think, for the Panthers to feel like they've got a quarterback that can do this in a playoff game. I can't really undersell how great Bryce was in this one. But 2.5 minutes to go. You're still giving Matthew Stafford the football with a defense that's outmatched from a personnel standpoint here. And unfortunately, I can't even really blame the players for this drive. I've praised Ejiro Evero, but geez, man, how many times do we need to see prevent defenses in these situations hurting the team? And the Panthers did the thing. They did the Brandon Staley thing. They did the Joe Barry thing. The many times earlier in his career, I think the Sean McDermott thing, where it's, you know, you're up by 4. You know that the opponent needs a touchdown, so you're just kind of allowing them to drive down into your territory by playing this squishy, conservative, off-zone, damn near prevent defense. And of course, Matthew Stafford and Sean McVay are going to take advantage of that. It was, I can't even say it was an impressive drive. Obviously, Matthew Stafford, the veteran that he is, he gets credit for taking what the defense gives him there. But I just hate playing that style because you then are inviting them down into the red zone. And you know Matthew Stafford can make some batshit crazy throws and has some really good playmakers, and that's exactly what happened. There was really one good play on this entire drive for the lead at the end, and it was an absolute dime, man. One of the throws of the weekend, Matthew Stafford throws a back shoulder comebacker to the tight end who had Trayvon Merrick in perfect coverage on either a corner route or a wheel route right at the pylon, right at the front pylon. And he puts it high and away from the DB, where only his guy can get it. Merrick doesn't interfere. He extends. He gets as perfect of coverage as you can possibly ask for on that play. But 6'6", Colby Parkinson, really great catch on the, it was a classic. You can't defend the perfect throw and the perfect catch. And that's exactly what it was. It was a pirouette, spin, catch right at the pylon, right in the end zone. It was really a thing of beauty on that play. So the Rams take the lead. The Panthers take over, and that's where you see the Rams defense kind of doing their thing at that point. Like, this is kind of the situation where you like the Rams defense with this pass rush, and they did a good job to make Bryce uncomfortable, to slam the door shut with that lead at the end on a second down. And you kind of got a little bit of everything for what this Rams pass rush is capable of. On second down, it's just a pure Jared Verse dominance where he gets chip blocked but still blows up a backup left tackle, forces Bryce out of the pocket where he kind of just dirts it on a throwaway. Third down, they walk 6 guys up to the line of scrimmage. Chris Shula, the defensive coordinator, showing that blitz, but it's a simulated pressure. 2 guys bail out. You end up rushing 4, but one of the D tackles ends up winning an angle because they didn't slide in the right spot, so you get a nice pressure there. And then on fourth down, they just run a classic stunt where the looper comes all the way back around, starting to get in Bryce's face. And then Bryce actually does make a big throw in this spot. He's got to get the ball off. The pressure's getting in. He's got Jimmy Horn on a crossing route, and Bryce puts it on him. It's maybe a tick low and behind him, but it's hardly an underthrow. Like, this definitely should have been caught. And Jimmy Horn, rookie wide receiver, 6th-round pick, he doesn't see the ball in. Clanks off his knees. Game over. Really frustrating to think of what could have been if Jimmy Horn catches it. But, man, what a fun game to recap, to assess how the Panthers really fought in this game, and certainly an incredible football game to be at. And there wasn't really a whole lot of devastation in that stadium when this game happens. I mean, I think you come out of that game feeling pretty confident as a Panthers fan that this season was a success, right? Like, to get into the playoffs, to show that you have a fan base that is that firmly behind you. I mean, look, I lived in Charlotte for eight months, and there is definitely a vibe in that town of like, yeah, the Panthers are the home team, but it's like a third Bills fans. You got a lot of like, it's very much a transplant city. So you got fans from all over the East Coast. Like, everybody's kind of a fan of somebody else down there. But to see that the Panthers fans were going to come into town from whatever pockets of North Carolina or South Carolina where they're coming from, to see, Cam Newton bang the drum, their first home playoff game since Cam was the quarterback, to see Bryce Young play like the way he played on top of this fan base really coming together, it's just exciting, man. It creates a lot of feel-good energy. Obviously, this team has a lot of work to do. I think you need to see a lot more consistency with the combination of Bryce Young and Dave Canales and these receivers. There just were points in this season where they just didn't have confidence in this passing game. But the hope, I think, is like, man, you did this against a great Rams pass defense in the playoffs. When you needed Bryce to be great, he was. And there was a lot of points where I said, like, man, you're just buckling up and running the ball and playing conservative and not putting yourself in a position for you to take that step as a football team. They were kind of forced into it here by getting down 14-0, but I really hope that's a lesson that, like, man, they can run the football, but they can throw it on you too. So I think this was what you were hoping for, even if it's not a win. They could have easily walked ass backwards into the playoffs thanks to the Falcons beating the Saints 8-9 and gotten blown out by the Rams here, and they didn't. So I think they're very much building some confidence into next year, and are going to put themselves in a position, depending on how their offseason goes, to, be NFC South champs again and hopefully take another step forward next year in this very young regime. As for the Rams, look, a playoff win's a playoff win. You're happy to live another day. You're happy to win a playoff game on a day where you make so many mistakes that typically will cost you the game. I mean, we mentioned the sequence before half that left a lot of points on the board. With the Puka drop and the Stafford overthrow, you have the Stafford interception in there. You have a punt blocked. I mean, you had a lot of stuff you got to clean up for the Rams. And it's not a great feeling to know that those special teams issues are still in there. The Rams did fire their special teams coordinator about 2 months ago. So to see another block punt show up there, you don't love that. Especially the Packers fan in me is like, you just don't want those to show up at a bad spot. I think that some parts of this secondary can certainly be exposed. So the Rams get a win. Stafford was great when they needed him to be great. But man, they got to be careful. I will say that. But a road playoff win is a road playoff win. You're not going to complain about this one. And it's not like the Rams didn't have some really exciting moments and remind you why they are viewed the way that they are. So for me, this one was more about the losing team, honestly, in the Carolina Panthers, earning some confidence and earning some respect heading into next year. And for the Rams, brush it off, get back to work this upcoming week in Chicago. So before we go to Chicago, actually, for our next game, the Panthers-Bears game, I do want to thank the sponsor for today's show, SeatGeek. Again, SeatGeek has been excellent to work with over the years. I've been partnered with them for a long time. I mean, they were one of my first partners, and they were kind enough to help me with some tickets to go to that amazing Panthers game. So special thanks to SeatGeek there for being great partners, but for being the best ticketing app out there on the market as well. They have the best app, the best user interface. They make the ticket buying process so easy by color coding every seat. So if you look for the green dots, you know you're getting the best value, not just on SeatGeek, but they're excellent about having market competitive prices as well. So you don't have to worry about checking other apps. And I mean, you certainly can, but you don't have to worry about it. Like SeatGeek is always going to have market competitive prices. You'll get the tickets right there in your app. So you don't have to have any stressful experiences chasing down tickets as you approach the gate. And right now, if you use code TFG10 at checkout, you can save up to $20 on whatever tickets you are buying. So if your NFL team just advanced and you're like me and you want to go on the road and go to a game, you can do that, certainly with basketball and NHL. Baseball's creeping up on us. We got spring training coming up as well. So you got all that, concerts, you name it. SeatGeek has you covered for all of it. Again, thank you to SeatGeek for sponsoring today's show. And let's now go to another phenomenal football game. Depending who you ask, Packers fans won't tell you this was a phenomenal game, but the Bears come back in dramatic fashion, doing Chicago Bears things. Cardiac Caleb, the Cardiac Bears, do it again after trailing 21-3 at halftime, and various points in this game trailing in a spot that it just didn't feel possible, like the team was going to come back. I'd have to look at the win probability chart, but I actually don't think halftime was their lowest win probability, if I think about it. There were some moments that we will rehash in this game where the Bears just kept getting chances to win this game and eventually execute in the end. But let's start in the very beginning of this Packers-Bears division rivalry, third match between these games, the rubber match. The Packers won the first one. The Bears come back and win the second one. But here we go. And the first quarter actually disappeared very quickly. It was one of those games where the clock was running. It was a lot of 3-4 yard plays, long drives. The Bears actually started with the ball, put together a nice long drive that did stall. Good fourth down defensive stop. Good decision, I think, for Ben Johnson to keep on the pressure. You want that opening drive touchdown. It's big to kind of put that pressure on your opponent, but they don't execute. So the Packers then get the ball, and they put together their own excellent opening drive. Just kind of a little bit of everything. Josh Jacobs was working. You got some good play calls in there. You got one really good throw from Jordan Love to keep the drive alive where he hits Romeo Doubs on a corner route. That was the prelude to Jordan Love making a bunch of awesome throws in this game. But the Packers go down and take the lead on an opening drive touchdown. The Bears get the ball back. And they stayed aggressive. They went for it on a 4th and 6, right around the 40-yard line. And they get a miscommunication. Big mistake by the Bears. Really a nice play design by Jeff Hafley on this play, where he runs an inverted cover 2 with a simulated pressure up front. So getting really creative. And against that look, Luther Burden runs the wrong route. So I don't know if the disguised coverage forced Luther Burden to react in a certain way. You'd have to ask him that, but certainly Caleb Williams throws the dig route. You see Caleb yelling at, and shout out to Twitter as well, because when I first watched this play, I thought that disguised coverage just kind of forced Caleb to be confused and put the ball in the wrong spot. But I shared the play out because I thought it was a really creative play call from Hafley, and so I love Twitter, man. There are some really good, smart NFL fans out there that just want to have good discourse. And you pointed out that it was a miscommunication, that they addressed it after the play. There's obviously, I'm not sitting there watching every team's press conference from every single player personally, so it's good to get that information. But yeah, Caleb was yelling at Burden on the sideline. I think Ben Johnson said it was a miscommunication, kind of the convenient way to defend both guys. But I do think Caleb probably was right in that situation. But either way, you get a miscommunication on a big 4th down. And just like we said with the Panthers, if you're going to be aggressive and go for it on 4th down, you go into it understanding the high-level variance that those can come with. However, the Packers did give the Bears a gift there because Carrington Valentine, for some reason, decides to intercept that ball. When it's a 4th and 6, he gives the Bears plus 30 yards in field position there by choosing to intercept the ball. And it's not like he had a lot of return potential either. He was going to the ground as he caught it. He should have just batted it. So boneheaded decision by Valentine. I'm sitting there watching that play as a Packers fan. Of all the dropped interceptions this year, anybody that's been watching my content this year, it's week after week, the Packers have to be on, I don't know where to find those stats, but the Packers have to be on some historic list of dropped interceptions or turnover-worthy plays by the opponent that don't result in turnovers. But I'm sitting there as a Packers fan. I'm like, that's the interception we're going to catch? Are you kidding me? Just hilarious. But Jordan Love makes sure that it doesn't matter because the Packers have to take over at the 10-yard line instead of right around the 40. And Jordan Love and this Packers offense put together a very nice-looking 90-yard touchdown drive. You get multiple big plays in there. You get a big chunk play from Jordan Love where he steps up in the pocket and hits Matthew Golden, which was a prelude to Matthew Golden breaking through in this game. But then there's a 3rd and 8 where he hits an out route to Romeo Doubs. And then to cap the drive off, Jordan Love, beautiful touch pass to Jayden Reed on what was an excellent play design by Matt LaFleur, by the way, which I want to point out because as we're going to talk about at the end of all of this, Matt LaFleur getting a lot of heat, but the Packers getting a big lead in this game in large part was, a lot of great play designs and play calling by Matt LaFleur. And this was a great example of it where it's just a brilliant play design. Watson's running a clear out route. He's running a post route into the teeth of the secondary. He carries the corner with him, occupies the free safety. I think it was probably cover 4 would be my guess, or some sort of cover red zone look where it's a lot of match zone stuff. But they have Jayden Reed running a whip out and up wheel route, which you just don't see that route intentionally designed a whole lot. So he fakes the slant, fakes the out route, and then breaks up on the wheel route, gets lost behind the linebacker, and Love accurately drops it in there. And man, I just want to say, accurate throw there. Jordan Love, accurate all day long, all season long after the first month of the year, accuracy has been my biggest bugaboo on Jordan Love, and he's been dialed in for a long time. But that was a brilliant touch pass that I feel like an older version of Jordan Love, maybe a tick underthrown and lets the linebacker break it up, or he sails it out of bounds or something. But no, this was right on the money. So Packers go up 14-3, and Ben Johnson's starting to get a little impatient here, man, because they go for it on 4th and 4 on the ensuing drive on their own 30-yard line. I mean, this isn't even like an analytical decision. This is just Ben Johnson doing Dan Campbell things, right? I mean, this was a ballsy decision that if the Bears end up losing this game, you look back on that decision like, what the hell was that? Just punt the ball away and play defense. But obviously, we're not talking about that right now with how this game ended. Because there was a lot of 4th downs in this game that I understand Ben Johnson going for. But that one especially was like, dude, risk reward on that one's pretty crazy. And it's not like it's 4th and 1 or 4th and 2. Like, this is 4th and 4. So they have to go drop back pass. Edgerrin Cooper on a blitz makes a great play, bats it down. Receiver was open, and can assume Caleb was going to hit him, but defense makes a play. Edgerrin Cooper, who ends up getting hurt in the second half of this game, by the way, but had a great first half, Edgerrin Cooper. I'll say this, Colston Loveland wasn't destroying the entire day for the Packers when Edgerrin Cooper was healthy. He was after he got hurt against a bunch of linebackers. But anyway, big stop for the Packers defense. This thing's starting to get a little ugly. They're showing shots of the Bears fans on the broadcast like, oh no, like, are the Packers really going to come into our house and do this to us right now? And the Packers take advantage of the 4th down decision with a couple of their own 4th downs on that ensuing possession. So they end up with a 4th and 1. Beautiful play call, by the way, in that situation, not running into a brick wall. LaFleur calls the play action boot, but not just a normal play action boot. He's got Christian Watson with his speed coming from the opposite side of the field, gets completely lost by the defense, and that goes for 22 yards, damn near a touchdown. They end up down by the goal line, and then they want to execute. They go for it again on 4th and goal. And again, brilliant play design by Matt LaFleur. They run a really nice schemed up pick play, but it's not your typical pick play where it's just like a slant-flant combination and you want the slant to kind of run into the DB a little bit, but make it look like you're trying to run a route and the flat comes open. Instead, they run it from a trips look, and they have Christian Watson running a bit of a out and up post route where he kind of carries the corner up the end zone a little bit and towards the safety. But it does look like Watson's trying to run the route. It was press coverage by the corner. But from that bunch trips look to the left side, all they have is Romeo Doubs just runs right behind him on a flat route. And the corner that was trying to cover Doubs had nowhere to go. And this was the type of pick route where it's like, look, I always say, call pick routes at your own risk. Sometimes they'll call it, sometimes they won't. I think officials have really been keyed in on the whole slant flats thing. But this was one where it was a really natural rub and a great play call by LaFleur. And again, if it gets called for offensive pass interference, this is why I always say offensive pass interference should be a loss of downs. If it gets called for offensive pass interference, that's fine. You kick the field goal anyway. You still get your down back. But love the play call, love the execution, love hits. I think it was Doubs there for a touchdown. So the Packers go up 21-0 at this point, man, and they are just absolutely rolling. And you can obviously see at this point the impact that 4th down variance has had in this game. The Packers are out playing the Bears, but not really by 21-3, I think. It's just the Bears weren't converting their 4th downs and the Packers were. And then on the next drive, it continues. The Bears go for it on 4th and 4 at the Packers 37-yard line. So again, the Bears driving again, but don't get the 4th down. It looked like on this one, they're throwing a hitch route or a dig route. Not a hitch. It was a dig to Cole Kmet. It looked like Caleb on that one did just overcook it a little bit. Probably the worst throw that Caleb had in this game, thinking back on it. But it ends up not mattering because the Packers take over. They get, I want to say they get a little swing pass that goes for a bunch of yards, and then Brandon McManus misses a 55-yard field goal, which was a huge story coming out of this game, was the Packers leaving 7 points on the board just from missed kicks. This was one of them. This one I will excuse a little bit. It's a 55-yarder in the wind. You can see he's trying to maybe account for the wind, or at least the wind did play a big factor, where the wind just takes it left, and you can see the flags blowing. So they don't convert on the 55-yard field goal. That one, it's a more forgivable miss, but we saw the Bears making long field goals in the second half of this game. So that happens right before the half. Packers could have made it 24-3. Instead, it's 21-3, but still feeling pretty good if you're a Packers fan heading into the second half of this game. They actually start with the football, and Packers fans just have no idea what's coming their way at this point in time. Or maybe, if you're a Packers fan, you do know what's coming, because this game somehow managed to take the same incredible script that the other two Bears games did, where the Packers in the first half look like the better team. They get out to a big lead, and then they're unable to put this Bears team away, which you know as well, this Bears team has done that to countless teams this season. They've developed the nickname Cardiac Bears for a reason, right? So you still got to come out and execute, and unfortunately, they stall on the opening drive. Nothing really horrible from Green Bay's perspective, just honestly good defense, good coverage. They get a big first down, or it might have been a second down stop, but they stop the run, good coverage, good rush. I think, there's going to be some parts that we hit on in the second half of this game. Like, Dennis Allen got this defense ready to go for the second half. Dennis Allen was a huge part of the Bears' ability to come back and win this game. And just, obviously it's easy to blame LaFleur and Love and say, well, they failed to score in the second half. Well, this happens in football, right? No one's destroying the Bears for not being able to score in the first half. It's just, this is the ebbs and flows of football, right? Sometimes offense is really good for a half and the defense struggles and it flips in the second half. And I think that's what we saw here. Was just great execution by Dennis Allen, some good blitz looks, some good overall defense from the Bears. And that opening drive of the second half was the beginning of that. But obviously the Packers punt there, and the Bears got to get things going. So that's what happens. Caleb had an excellent second half in this game, and this was the beginning of it. There's a 3rd and 8 on that ensuing drive, a huge spot. Caleb slides in the pocket, steps up, hits Colston Loveland for 30 yards in stride, and they follow that right up with a play-action boot of their own to hit Loveland for another 20. They get down to the goal line, and they actually stall, and settling for a field goal on a 4th and 10. So you're now 21-6. Packers take over on the next drive. And this is where I did write down, obviously I just went on that big spiel that I think there was a lot of good defense from the Bears in the second half. I think this possession right here, there was a little bit of meat on the bones, a drop back from Jordan Love especially, that I thought he had a pretty good opportunity to keep the drive alive. He's got a pretty open pocket. He steps up on a 3rd and 2. And I thought he could have scrambled for it, but he also had Matthew Golden working on a comebacker down the left sideline, and he had about a half a step on the guy, and Jordan Love just kind of floats it out of bounds. He throws it away and kind of does the whole punt and live to see another day thing there. That was one specific drop back where I was kind of frustrated. You want to keep the pedal down in those situations. Would have loved to see Jordan Love either scramble for it or at least give Matthew Golden a chance, which he ended up doing later on here that we'll talk about here in some big spots. But yeah, Packers let a drive get away from them for sure right there. And then the Packers punt right after that, and the Bears basically get all of that punt yardage back like that. Caleb hits a strike to Luther Burden for a bunch of yards over the middle of the field. They end up driving down the field, and then at this point, they got stopped on a 4th and 1 near the goal line. There's 20 minutes left in this game. Obviously a good decision to go for it in that situation, 4th and 1 on like the 8-yard line or something. But great defense by the Packers. They get a pressure up the middle, and Tyron Hopper, who's in at this point because Edgerrin Cooper is injured, ends up kind of staying back. It was one of those heavier, I didn't write down all the notes on what the formation was and stuff, but I think it was one of those kind of heavy formation play action leak looks where you're hoping the Packers kind of sell out for the run and the tight end gets lost on the backside of the play. You see it all the time. Tyron Hopper, good heads up play, stays back with, I think it was Kmet, it could have been Loveland. And Caleb kind of under pressure has to sort of throw it, touch pass, make a really hard throw off his back foot, and he ends up throwing it right to Hopper. Maybe he had a chance to put it a little bit closer to the tight end to give him a better chance to catch it, but just good defense on that play. They got quick pressure there. So at that point, you're like, dude, there's 20 minutes left in the game. The Bears aren't like putting these touchdown drives together. Like the Packers are still playing great defense 40 minutes into this game. It's 21-6. And you're like, this one's over, man. Like that play, I think, had to have been the highest. Although there's another moment later that maybe was, but that had to be I would think the peak in win probability for the Packers. But they stall again offensively. They take over right there after the 4th down, and shout out a really fun play that happened before they ended up stalling. They run a screen pass to their 6th offensive lineman that worked, and you've got Darian Kennard, who's like 330 pounds, gets the ball in his hands. He runs through the defense. And then Packers got a little lucky here, actually. The offensive lineman that you called the play for, it reminds me when the Bears tried to do that with one of their linemen. Was it the Commanders game last year? They tried to do a QB sneak with him or something, and he fumbled it at the goal line. Well, you put the ball in the hands of your offensive lineman. They got a lot of stuff bouncing around, knees, big quads, bellies. They can knock the ball out of their own hands at times. And Darian Kennard, after looking pretty good on the run, fumbles it and accidentally kicks the ball forward like 20 yards. And the Bears unable to secure it, man. I mean, I think it was big number 99, the Florida D tackle. I can never think of his damn name off the top of my head. Oh God, Javon Dexter. He belly. I mean, this was a big man, clumsy play. He's running down the field. He belly flops on it, knocks it out of bounds. And again, in that moment, you're like, everything is going the Packers' way, dude. Like, it's 21-6 still at this point. We're just about the start of the 4th quarter. And the Packers now are the team getting turnover luck. Like, that's been my thing on the Bears this year, is it's like, I feel like the turnover luck, it's gonna bite them at the wrong time. And that felt like the take there was like, here's a whole season's worth of turnover luck biting you in the ass. The Bears needed a turnover. It felt like so desperately in that moment. They had it right there, and they can't fall on a football, which is like the thing they've done so well all year long, is when those opportunities present themselves, they have consistently executed on it. But no, bounces out of bounds. You're like, all right, Packers live to see another day. Wasn't the first time that happened in this game, by the way. We'll get there. But right after that, the Packers stall. And that was good defense by the Bears. Good quick pressures, good blitzes. They draw a intentional grounding out of Jordan Love, so you end up with like a 3rd and 20. With a 21-6 lead. I mean, look, you want to be mad at Matt LaFleur for not taking a shot deep on 3rd and 20 in that situation. That's what every coach in the league is going to do, is just, let the clock keep running, run a draw, run a screen, or a quick underneath pass or whatever, and punt the ball away. And that's what the Packers do after getting the intentional grounding call. On that punt right there, Packers vintage special teams shows up again. They allow a 50-yard punt return that ends up costing them 3 points, because the defense actually ends up getting a stop on that ensuing drive after they allow a 50-yard punt return back into their own red zone. So it basically ends up equating to the difference if the Bears had just fallen on that fumble. But anyway, at this point, you're now talking about the Packers special teams has given 6 points to the Bears because of the missed field goal and the punt return. More to come. Bears get that field goal there. It's now 21-9. And you can fast forward a little bit after a couple of nice touchdown drives. Caleb puts together a really nice drive, one of his better drives of this game. They go get the touchdown. And then the Packers now 21-16 end up having to answer. I mean, at that point, it's like you have put up no points in the second half. The Bears are getting this comeback. You keep giving them opportunities. You have to do something. If you're Jordan Love, if you're Matt LaFleur, you got to be able to execute this thing. You got to find answers. And they did in this moment. They put together a brilliant touchdown drive, a little bit of everything, some good throws from Love, and finished off by, again, good play design by Matt LaFleur, who finally gets Matthew Golden and, that critical design touch. They've tried to do this with Golden at times. It just hasn't looked great with him with the ball in his hands. But my goodness, they use Golden as a running back pre-snap. They do the motion pre-snap. They flip it out to him on the perimeter. And he makes how many Bears miss for this brilliant touchdown? Incredible moment. That, again, feels like that's all the Packers needed to do. You're into the fourth quarter. You put the touchdown response on the board. Great. Good work. You did your thing. You didn't collapse this second half. But we see what happens. And right after that touchdown, by the way, guess what happens? Brandon McManus misses a PAT. So that's now a full touchdown on the board given to the Bears because of the Packers special teams. The score is now 27-16 instead of 28-16. Something to keep in mind as we continue to recap this game. But you're now looking at about under 6 minutes to go, 2-score game. Bears need hero ball, true hero ball from Caleb Williams. And they get it. Caleb Williams on this next drive just made some absurd shit happen, man. 2 plays specifically. They start the drive off where he kind of avoids pressure, rolls left, hits Roma Dunze in between zone defenders, and then they end up with a 4th and 8 with like 5 minutes to go, right around midfield. This was, I mean, with the way this game went, you never know, I guess. But this, you got to think, was the game right here. 4th and 8. They just got backed up with a false start. They're at about the 50-yard line. Again, they're down 2 scores. And Caleb Williams makes the play that you guys have probably seen going around on Twitter. He eludes pressure, rolls left, and kind of like jump passes it. Perfect touch pass, like over 2 zone defenders. Of course, Keyshawn Nixon was not in position to make a play because he's Keyshawn Nixon. And I think it was Rome, right, that made that catch as well. I do not think we will see a better overall play, especially given the stakes from a quarterback in these playoffs. I mean, it's being compared to, obviously Bears and Packers fans are going to have a lot of these conversations. It's being compared to a lot of Aaron Rodgers' kind of heroic throws in the playoffs that he's made. The big like drive for the Cardinals before overtime, or the Jared Cook pass. Like, it was in that category of like, we need a God mode quarterback that is capable of making a play that only peak Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. There's only a small handful of human beings that can do what Caleb did on that play, and it was incredible. And that keeps the drive alive. They end up punching the ball in with DeAndre Swift on that drive on a nice run where Keyshawn Nixon makes a business decision at the goal line. Really hoping Keyshawn Nixon will be off the team next year for the Packers' sake. But the Bears end up going for 2, which they probably wouldn't have if it was 28-16, because had the Packers made their PAT and got to 28 points, there would have been no need for the Bears to put an extra point on the board. But because going for 2 allowed them to get it within a field goal, they do. They go for 2, so they get it. Caleb hits, I think, Colston Loveland, who was one-on-one with a safety. Nice play, good throw from Caleb. It's now a 3-point ball game. With 4 minutes to go, the Packers still getting the ball, up 3. And you got to be thinking, looking back on this, with all the chaos happening and not remembering exactly what happened, you got to be thinking like, all right, 4 minutes left. They're still up 3. The Bears end up winning this game. Packers had to go like 3 and out on that possession, right? Because there's no way that they still blew it at that point. But that's not what happened. Nope. On a 2nd and 8, Jordan Love throws a beautiful over-the-shoulder pass to Romeo Doubs that makes a one-handed catch, but because it was thrown with touch and layered perfectly, it was certainly in the easier category of one-handed catches where it just kind of gets eased in nicely. If that makes sense, you can watch the play if you know what I'm talking about here. It's not like this was some crazy leaping one-handed hero grab. Like, this was a great throw from Jordan Love in a big spot that gets them into field goal range at the Bears' 35-yard line now with 3 minutes, 20 seconds to go. And then surely after that, the Packers had to have completely stalled, right? I mean, everybody's calling for Matt LaFleur's job. They said the offense didn't do anything in the second half. Nope. 2nd and 10 on the ensuing set of downs there. Jordan Love throws a beautiful out route to Matthew Golden, who makes a beautiful catch down the sideline to set up a new set of downs with 3 minutes and 10 seconds left. The Bears now down to 2 timeouts. The Packers now onto the Bears' 20-something yard line. So it's not like the Bears, after making this a 3-point game and leading this dramatic comeback, it's not like the Packers did nothing offensively to bounce back. They answered with the touchdown drive. They're putting a good drive together here. They're doing what they need to do to hold off the cardiac Bears. But this is where things really get kind of messed up by the Packers. First down, they go nowhere on the ground, which was a huge problem for them. They could not get the ground game going in this entire second half. It had to be Jordan Love and these receivers making plays. And they then take 2 deep shots into the end zone here. That's with about 3 minutes left. And they don't use any clock there. And look, that's where Matt LaFleur is going to be getting slammed for the clock management and stuff. Well, you saw 2 plays later why LaFleur wanted to put this game away, right? They missed the 44-yard field goal after those deep shots. They had no run game at all in this game. Now, I think Packers fans would say you want to be the more physical team. You want to be tough. You want to be in that spot. You want to say we can run the ball. If we can run the ball for 1 more first down, we win this game. They weren't able to do it in the second half. I think it's easy to look at what happened and be critical of it. I think there is at least a rationale for Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love to say, you know what? We want to put this game away through the air. Now, they didn't execute, right? But, okay, so if they go run and miss the field goal, are you not sitting there saying you weren't able to run the ball the entire second half? Why don't you try to put this game away instead of kicking a field goal to make it a 6-point game and letting them go take the lead? It's tough for me. Obviously, you wish they could have ran the ball, but at the same time, they're out their 2 best offensive linemen, and the Bears were roaring at this point. So, look, it just is unfortunate what happened in that sequence, but they missed that field goal. So we're now talking about 10 points swing from special teams, 7 points from missed kicks, and the field goal that was gifted on the punt return there. And you can even argue for another point in there because the Bears would have had no reason to go for 2 if the Packers made their PAT earlier in the game, as we described. So that's actually 11 points from special teams. But the Bears take over, obviously good field position because of the missed field goal, and they score very quickly. And that is where you get Ben Johnson really making his mark on this game with his brilliant play calling and design and impact here, where they take Darnell Wright, who everybody knows is weaponized as this lead blocker, this all-pro superstar lead blocker. I mean, really. And they put him at left tight end, and they run a fake screen to the left side. And everyone's like, for sure, they're just throwing the screen with Darnell Wright trying to take the lead here. But no, it's a fake screen with the wheel route, wide open. Caleb hits DJ Moore, and the Bears take the lead. the comeback has been completed at this point, and now all the Bears have to do is hold off the Packers, who at this point still have a minute 36 left to go the field. I think one timeout left because there was definitely some a wasted timeout in there in that ugly sequence a few minutes ago of game time at this point, which LaFleur, is he expecting to be in this situation when they're trying to put the Bears away and he just wants to get the right play call to try to win the game? Probably not, but yeah, they would love to have an extra timeout now in this situation. But with a minute 30 to go, the whole length of the field to go, man, Jordan Love, who had a brilliant day at the office, he gave his team every chance to go the length of the field, needing a touchdown at this point because they're down 4, despite a brutal drop from Jayden Reed on a great throw from Jordan Love right in the middle of this drive that I'll describe. Love puts it on him in stride on a deep cross right there. And it would have been a huge play, an absolutely huge play. And he probably gets out of bounds. If he makes Kyler Gordon, who was trailing, a miss, he might have had the go-ahead touchdown on that play. But I want to talk about how this drive kind of played out. And I'll point out when that drop happened. But right away, they end up in a 4th down, so they're kind of in a pinch. The Bears were playing good defense, and Jordan Love finds Matthew Golden on a beautiful deep out, working the guy one-on-one. Matthew Golden, again, spectacular in this football game. Then you do get that drop a few plays later, so that was at about 50 seconds left, and they're sitting about their own 40-yard line. So right after that big drop that would have put them on the Bears probably 25-yard line, if not further, with about 50 seconds left. After that drop, I think 2 plays later, Love hits Reed again on a dig route over the middle of the field, which gets that big chunk back. They get a big completion. They end up right there at about the Bears' 20-yard line. But that eats up that play eats up about 30 seconds or so because it's a long developing play. He's not tackled out of bounds where he would have been if Jayden Reed didn't drop that first one. I think he's able to get out of bounds on that play. So the clock's running. They got to run up the ball. They got to spike it. You're now left with 19 seconds left on the Bears' 22-yard line is what I wrote down. So you're still in a pretty tough spot at that point. And Love still makes a throw that in that circumstance is about as much as you can ask for from your quarterback. He throws a deep dig to Christian Watson in between zone defenders, which, yes, it's one of those throws where, the receiver's going to have to go into traffic and make a tough catch. I don't think it is always on the receiver in those situations, but when it's the playoffs and there's 20 seconds left and the quarterback makes a throw that requires the receiver goes to get hit in traffic a little bit after the catch, context matters, right? So this is a great throw from Jordan Love with pressure right in his face, by the way. The replay on this thing looks insane, but you can clearly see Watson sees the traffic, assumes that Love's not going to throw the ball, slows up, and then reacts once he sees Love did throw the ball, has to go back, get into that position, and he has to then overextend. It would not have been an overthrow if Watson doesn't slow down on his route. And he is then catching the ball at about the 2-yard line, maybe with a chance to roll or spin into the end zone or keep running into the end zone, depending on how well the DBs play it. But they're then, at least putting themselves on the 2-yard line, spiking it with probably 10 to 15 seconds left. You're giving yourself at least a chance to punch it into the end zone, as opposed to after that play, you're in basically Hail Mary territory. So, look, man, Jordan Love beat the allegations in this game. I'll say that. He was spectacular in this game. But But wow, what a game to recap, man. Just so much going on. Sorry for the thorough recap if you didn't really want it, especially Packers fans. Probably didn't want to relive all that, but it's fun to look back at like, how the hell did this happen? And it was just amazing. I mean, to me, it was number one, the Packers special teams, obviously, as we detailed. And by the way, I didn't mention, they got themselves in field goal range, right? So if they had any number of those kicks back, even just the PAT or one of the two missed field goals, they are kicking the ball there with a chance. Ideally, like if they get a PAT and one of those field goals, you're at a tie game. You're kicking the field goal to win the game. But very reasonably, they could have at least kicked a field goal, a 35-yard field goal or a 40-yard field goal to force overtime at worst. But that's another 3 points that they ended up not being able to take because of the special teams. It was really a 14-point swing due to special teams in this game, which tragically is nothing new for Packers fans. I feel like people just dismiss it when I've been on this channel trying to point out how critically costly the Packers special teams is. They have got to be on a historic all-time NFL run of about 15 years of horrific special teams performances, specifically in the playoffs. And this was another one. So that was the biggest difference in this game. But the Packers' inability to run the ball in the second half of this game, the injuries on the offensive line, their two best, most experienced offensive linemen, Zach Tom, Elton Jenkins, Pro Bowl caliber players, not available for them in this game. That was big, and the Bears just deserve credit, man. I mean, the defense really stepped up in the second half. Dennis Allen, like I said, had a lot of great moments. Caleb Williams and Colston Loveland locked the hell in and made plays. So really a horrible ending for the Packers in this game, and we'll just continue talking about things on their side, and then I do want to talk about the Bears side a little bit more, but this game sent Packer Nation into a full-scale assault on Matt LaFleur's job, one that has been building throughout this season that stems from not using Matthew Golden at times and, yes, blowing some late-game leads and some really frustrating moments. But this game really brought it to the forefront where it actually legitimately created this situation where Ed Policy, the Packers kind of president, is meeting with Matt LaFleur to determine if they're going to extend his contract, and kind of as a response to all of this fan rage at Matt LaFleur. And I don't want to talk about that because it's just insane to me to fire Matt LaFleur at this point in time. It is. Look, the collapses suck, and somebody needs to hold their hand up and say, that was inexcusable, that's on me. And I don't disagree with that. Like, you have to be able to put games like this away. However, in my opinion, you stack it up against Matt LaFleur's resume, what he brings to the table as a play caller, and brought to the table in this game with multiple brilliant play calls that I broke down in this recap that helped you get that lead to begin with. You have Jordan Love in Matt LaFleur's system, who has developed tremendously coming out of this season. I've never been more confident in Jordan Love that he is a top 8 to 10 quarterback and pushing that tier 2 of like championship level quarterback play. And that is because of Matt LaFleur and his development and the system that he has created here. It's if you're on a balancing scale where it needs to weigh this far down to fire a coach, and it needs to be propped up this high on the other side of a resume and things that a coach brings to the table, blowing some late game leads that have been really emotionally hard to take for Packers fans is not enough to drag down all of the good things about Matt LaFleur as a head coach. It's insane to me. Now, the more and more and more that those build up, sure, right? Like, I think if it happens again next year, and this crap happens in big spots, you're going to have a stronger case to push that against all of the good stuff that LaFleur brings to the table. But the Packers are a soft team who chokes leads isn't a strong enough case to fire LaFleur for me. But beyond that, there was other arguments that people were using to fire LaFleur. They're saying the Packers are underachieving. That's what gets me, is a large part of the Packers fan base is like, we expect more, they're underachieving. And I'm like, hold on. What did you think the team last year was capable of? When they walked ass backwards into the playoffs with basically their entire offensive roster out and couldn't hold up against a championship caliber Eagles defense in Philadelphia. What did you think that team was capable of? What did you think a lot of those early Matt LaFleur teams were capable of? Not a whole lot. I mean, Mike McCarthy and Ted Thompson left this roster in disarray. There to me have been 2 championship windows, legitimately speaking, for Matt LaFleur. Number one was the Rodgers MVP years, that unfortunately they got outmatched by an even better Bucs team, one of the best teams of the decade, in my opinion. And even that year, David Bakhtiari goes down with an absolutely brutal knee injury that very well might have cost the Packers their biggest chance in that window. I mean, realistically, that was devastating. He was fresh off a new contract and basically never played for them again, and that carried into the next season. But they did advance far in those playoffs and weren't able to get it done. But since Rodgers left, the only real hope this team has had to be like an actual Super Bowl team was this year, 4 or 5 weeks ago, before Micah Parsons tore his ACL. But you head into the playoffs without Micah Parsons, without Tucker Kraft, without your 2 best offensive linemen, without your second best pass rusher in Devontae Wyatt, in a game where probably the best existing defensive player on your team, and Edgerrin Cooper, he goes down in the second half of the game, that let Colston Loveland run free in the secondary once the backup linebackers had to come in. You reach a point where you just have to be realistic of like, you just ran out of horses, man. You just ran out of soldiers. And the Bears outplayed you in the second half and you lost. But I also don't look back on a road playoff loss by 4 points when your kicker leaves 7 points on the board as underachieving in those circumstances either. I think the Packers clearly came out, honestly, a better coached, more well-prepared team that did let things get away from them, yes, in the second half. But underachieving this Packers team, no. And yes, Kyle Shanahan was able to edge out the Eagles by a few points with their injuries. We'll see what happens with the Niners. But look, if your solution and the reason you fire Matt LaFleur is, well, he's not Kyle Shanahan, okay, that takes me to my next point on why you don't fire LaFleur right now is who's your answer? Who the hell is your answer? Because going to hire Kyle Shanahan is not an answer. There's only one Kyle Shanahan or 2 in Sean McVay. I'm not sitting here trying to argue that Matt LaFleur is in that tier 1 of coaches, but I do think he's in the next tier of coaches. And who the hell is your answer to go hire something better than what Matt LaFleur is bringing to the table with how he elevates this offense? There's nobody in this hiring cycle that is specifically low on offensive candidates. The fact that Packers fans are literally sitting here saying, I want Kevin Stefanski instead of Matt LaFleur, it is the definition of being a fan. The root of the word, fanatic, crazy talk. It's unbelievable. And I'll tell you, fanatics, right now, there is a reason that every NFC North fan, every fan of a team with a head coach opening that's not filled yet, is praying that the Packers were going to do something stupid here. Every single member of this Packers locker room, plus Aaron Rodgers, really for no reason at all, got wind that they were talking about it in Green Bay. He's like, are you nuts? You don't fire Matt LaFleur. What are you freaking thinking? Did you see what I've been through the last 2 years since I had him? The last 3 years? Like, are you freaking kidding me? That dude's an insane offensive mind and a great head coach. So players are coming to his defense. Micah Parsons is out here like, hold on. This is like a big reason I came here is because I believed so much in the head coach. Like, what are we talking about? Moving on from LaFleur right now. Like, that plus, look at what every neutral analyst is saying about this. And it is, no, you don't fire Matt LaFleur. That'd be crazy reactionary and stupid. So fortunately, Ed Policy, the new team president, seems to have a level head about this in tandem with his board of directors there with the Packers, and they're gonna extend Matt LaFleur. And that also doesn't mean that LaFleur doesn't have to, take on these chokes and prove that that's not going to be an issue moving forward. And like I said, don't let that outweigh all the other good stuff it brings to the table. He now has legitimate criticisms on him, things he needs to overcome. And if he can't, a contract extension for an NFL head coach means nothing. Harbaugh just signed an extension last offseason, before this year. So if this continues to be a problem, you can still move on from LaFleur, but this is not the year to do it in a widely regarded weak head coach hiring pool. Like I said, Stefanski, Harbaugh, like these are your solutions, Packers fans? Or you could go risk that you can get a great defensive-minded coach like Chris Shula or Flores. But for me, when you have the offensive coach that everybody is seeking, the offensive head coach, we've talked so many times about the benefits of just having that great play caller that is your head coach and not going to get poached. You should be in no rush to move on from that. Look at the Chargers playoff game. Look at their inability to scheme anything open. It's crazy talk, but it does seem the Packers are going to stand behind LaFleur as they should. Now, one thing is clear, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on the Packers here, but one thing is clear is they have to do something about the special teams. It's been 15 years of this in Green Bay. I don't know what the exact solution is, obviously, but they got to keep trying. You got to make moves. You got to keep trying to fix this thing. And I think that starts with firing Rich Bisaccia, which that's another reason I will defend LaFleur a little bit, is it's like a big criticism on him is they haven't been able to get the special teams right, but it's not like he hasn't acknowledged that it's an issue. And when they hired Rich Bisaccia, that was a universally loved decision to do that. The guy that was a great special teams coach with the Raiders, that was awesome as the interim head coach. They freaking hired him, or they thought about hiring him as the head coach, but they didn't because the interim thing failed for the Raiders before that. But he was a head coach candidate after his interim stint. Everybody loved Rich Bisaccia, and we're like applauding Matt LaFleur for landing him as the head coach, as the special teams coordinator. They made him the highest paid special teams coordinator in the league, and it didn't work. Look, I don't know what at a higher level could have been attempted to fix this special teams. Now, it didn't work. And Bisaccia's got to go. He's not doing a good job with these special teams. I don't know if he got complacent with all that money or what the hell happened, but he has not been good. I think they had 10 players on the field for for one of the Bears' field goals or PATs or something. Like, that was going around. Like, that's got to change. You need someone else to take a different swing at this because it can't really get any worse. But I also think, in tandem with that, I don't understand why the front office avoids all criticism here. Everybody's calling for LaFleur's job. Well, who picks the kicker, you guys? It's Brian Gutekunst. And who fields all these specialists? You know who had an incredible punt gun on the same day? Isaiah Simmons for the Panthers. You know who blocked a punt for the Panthers on the same day? Isaiah Simmons. Where was Isaiah Simmons in training camp? Green Bay, Wisconsin. They let him go. Instead, they choose to field whoever the hell else down the board is gunning punts. And there was actually some injuries to punt gunners too, but you would think those would be players you can find. I don't know. But to me, there is such a lack of focus on building specialists on this team. And they had it for a little bit with like Dallin Leavitt followed Bisaccia over. I remember him. Some of Bisaccia's guys came at first, and it felt like the special teams was much improved for a little bit, but they haven't had those guys anymore. And the special teams has been, yet again, bottom 3 in the league and incredibly costly in the playoffs. To me, why is all the blame on Matt LaFleur when you aren't paying your kicker and aren't drafting kickers and aren't trying to find guys? Like, Packers could have had Will Reichert in the 6th round. Why didn't they draft him, you know? They could have had Cam Little. Why didn't they draft him? No, they went for the retread veteran that was good until he wasn't. But there was no change made when it was clear throughout the year that McManus was not the same this year. So I don't understand why the Packers' organizational failures at special teams, like this well preceded Matt LaFleur and Rich Bisaccia here. When do we start to look at their draft philosophy? And Gutekunst, who came from the traditional Packers philosophy, that is going to have the same mentality about how you want to deploy 6th round picks. What do you want to do with those back end roster spots, 47 through 50 or whatever? Do you want to fill those out with developmental players or true specialists? That, to me, it's easier to blame that because that's the one thing that's been consistent throughout the 15 years is the front office and that philosophy. To me, it's like, look, Matt LaFleur's trying. Like, he's the one that really is in charge of this staff, and he's the one that really made that push for Bisaccia. So, I don't know, man. It's that to me is what really needs to be looked at here. Otherwise, it's just everybody relax, and the Packers are going to get guys back healthy and be pretty damn scary in the NFC next year with these guys coming back and Jordan Love playing the way he's playing. So I know that was a lot of time on the Packers, but there was a lot of talk about this out there, and I really wanted to hit home on it and clarify my stance on it. I don't have too much else to say about the Bears. Obviously, this was an incredible continuation of their season. I tweeted it out that we joked about the Pope being a Bears fan, being named the Pope this year from Chicago. We joked about it, but if you watch the Bears this year, it just might be the biggest sign of divine intervention since the Bible was written. I'm just saying, the way that the Bears keep winning these games late is insane. The way that the wind seems to blow for them on these kicks, I don't know. But they deserve a ton of credit. Caleb and Colston Loveland are going to be a problem for a long time, and there's something about Caleb's ability to create magic. He's got that clutch factor. He has that competitive fire that you want to see. And I'm excited to see him face the Rams this week. Very, very excited. And I'll repeat it one more time. I don't think the Bears win this game without Dennis Allen. It was a really excellent job by this defense in the second half. And while all the blame is going on LaFleur and the Packers for not being able to run the ball and find enough offense in the second half, there was some really creative stuff with the way they were moving that D-line. They didn't make the same mistakes they made against the Packers earlier in the year where they would run these like ineffective man blitzes that just got torched. They played really good zone coverage, in a lot of those big second half stops, and even some good man coverage in there as well. But those were the main takeaways. Oh, okay, one last thing. The Ben Johnson commentary. He says, I fucking hate the Packers in his post game and the quick handshakes with Matt LaFleur. Ben Johnson is like basically memeing the Packers and turning this into a sign of disrespect. But I love it, man. I absolutely love the rivalry thing. We need more of this in the sport, especially when it's Packers Bears and you got Love and Caleb like throwing haymakers at each other. In my opinion, you have these two awesome head coaches in Matt LaFleur and Ben Johnson. Like, this is just the beginning of this, assuming LaFleur doesn't lose his job next year. And why not raise the tension a little bit? I love it, man. And Packers fans, between calling for LaFleur's job and bitching and moaning about how he's, there's no sportsmanship, I think Ben Johnson should shake LaFleur's hand at the end of it. I'll say that. But the F the Packers thing, like, I love it, man. And Packers fans crying for LaFleur's job and complaining about Ben Johnson, talking shit, as he should. Like, it's just not a good look for Packers Nation this week. I'm just calling it like it is, man. I'm just calling it like it is. So, very fun game to react to. Lot of thoughts, a lot to get into. But we're not done. I'm going to take a little break, and then we'll do Bills, Jags next. Okay, for our next game, and I can't spend an hour on all of these games. I do apologize. Got a little fired up over Packers, Bears. But let's go to Sunday, where we had the Bills and the Jags in another instant classic. Hell of a game, and a game that started a little slower, right? But man, big time win for the Bills, for Sean McDermott especially, but for the Bills to advance their playoff hopes this year. And it's a huge narrative that, and we're putting the cart before the horse a little bit, kind of talking about takeaways from this game, but it's fun to contextualize that beforehand, I guess. But it's a huge narrative that the Bills got to get it done. There's no Mahomes, Burrow, Lamar, all that. And it's a fun narrative. It's largely overblown because I don't think the Bills are that good of a football team themselves, but there is some truth to it as well that I think it's a little bit more of an opportune year that you don't have to get through all of those quarterbacks. So I do think it still matters. And it's a big win for the Bills to move on. But, this game started a little bit sloppier, a little uglier before it got really good in the second half. But I do want to kind of go through this play by play as we've done. And this one started off, honestly, with a few of those kind of Jaguars frustrating passing game moments. And that was a big narrative from me on this game heading in, was like, obviously the Jags have kind of had this roller coaster year where the first 2/3 of the year you saw miscommunications, drops, bad Trevor Lawrence moments. And then the last quarter of the year or last third of the year, they got rid of it. And Jacoby Myers was an absolute superstar for them. And, Trevor Lawrence was balling and all this, and they headed into the playoffs. It's like, man, this team doesn't have any weaknesses. But honestly, this game at the very beginning was very reminiscent of earlier season Jags, and it was not great to see some of these issues pop up. So on their first couple of drives, you saw it. On their first drive on third down, you get one of those classic like Trevor Lawrence almost throws. Do you remember the almost throw highlight reel from Trevor Lawrence a couple of years ago? You had one of those where Trevor does try to make some really batshit crazy throws, and he can do it a lot of times, but it does lead to some of these where you got a tightly contested target and he's trying to throw the corner route to Jacoby Myers, who's made a lot of these tough catches this year, and it's just a tick out in front of him. Catch is just a little bit too difficult for Myers. It goes either over his head or just off his fingertips, but they're just off the mark on a third down, not quite on the right page there. And that was almost a little bit of a teaser to what ended up playing out in this game where, look, the Trevor to Jacoby Myers connection has been awesome, and I think will continue to be awesome into next season. But in this game, it wasn't. They had multiple big plays where they just weren't able to connect, and that was one of them. But especially on that second drive, you had I hate to call it a vintage miscommunication, but that's kind of what it is with this Jags team. Again, something they had eliminated on this hot stretch, but they attempt to throw over the middle of the field, and Trevor throws it about 2 feet to the right. Parker Washington's looking back like, wait, you wanted the ball there? And they get a big incompletion on second down. And then on third down, Trevor Lawrence just has, honestly, kind of an inexcusable interception. It's just third down. It's just cover two. The Bills didn't do anything fancy on this play. Shaq Thompson standing right there in the mid-zone read. And it's not like the Jags had any sort of receivers on the play on the route concept to carry. So they're trying to throw a dig route into cover 2. And if you're going to do that, you need to have something. I mean, ideally, you have something to kind of occupy that mid-zone defender. Usually, that's the idea of like a dagger concept, where you run a guy up the seam and you run that dig dagger behind him, or to replace him. There was none of that. There was nobody on the route concept to occupy Shaq Thompson in the mid-read zone at all. And they run the dig right at him. Trevor Lawrence is staring at it. Shaq Thompson's reading it all the way, and Trevor just throws it. And Shaq makes a relatively athletic play to go pick it off, but from NFL standards, he threw it right to him. And there was no disguise. There was nothing crazy about this play. It was just a really bad decision that obviously is a turnover and sets the Bills up with great field position. It is fun when Shaq Thompson gets a pick because he played running back in college, right? So he's got the form, tuck the ball. He looks good with the ball in his hands. He had a nice little return off of it. But to the Jags' credit, they did hold the Bills to a field goal there, but that's a costly 3 points, man, right? That's the difference in this game at the end of the day, on display on the second possession there. But the Jags defense does hold up. It's noteworthy that on 3rd and 6, the Bills call a QB draw. And that was a prelude to some very conservative offense, a very conservative approach by the Bills, that I think if they did end up losing this game, it would have been very interesting to revisit a lot of these, because you'll see as we go throughout this game, there was a bunch of moments for the Bills who there was a chart going around on Twitter that went pretty viral about how the Bills, 67% of their third down passes are behind the line of scrimmage, behind the line to gain, rather, not behind the line of scrimmage. And the next team down was way far down. But the Bills were like miles ahead, not really pushing the ball downfield or being too aggressive on third downs. And that showed up in this game big time. But they go the QB draw on 3rd and 6. They fall short. They kick the field goal. So we're now 3-0 a few drives into this game. But right after that, the Jags do get things going. They get Baishal Tutin going on a really big drive. It's a shame they couldn't get, ETN had a couple moments in the second half, but I think a hope in this game was that the Jags were going to be able to dominate on the ground and really take advantage of a Bills run defense that has struggled tremendously this season. And I didn't write it down, but it didn't feel like the Jags had a huge day on the ground. I would bet they had about 130 yards on the ground. Just give me a second. I can pull it up. Here, they had 154. So they had a good day on the ground, but it wasn't like a takeover day. But that drive is, I think, what you were really hoping for was like, they can't run with our backs. And Baishal Tutin on that drive, I think one was a catch and run on a screen, but he basically just went the whole way on 3 plays. So the Jags go take the lead. And then the Bills kind of felt for a second they were teasing the idea, the oh boy, here we go again thought on the Bills, because on the ensuing kick return, they fumble it and give great field position to the Jags. I've always said that the Bills are the AFC Packers because they seem to have these just poorly timed, idiotic mistakes. And by fumbling a kick return there, and by the way, I forgot to mention that the Packers had a fumbled kick return that the Bears weren't able to fall on, which was a part of their continuation of that turnover luck narrative that I wanted to revisit at some point in the game and I didn't get to, so sorry for rewinding and sticking that in there. But anyway, the Jags get the kick return fumble, they fall on it, and they get a chance to take a big lead there, right? Short field, already up 7-3, and they just fall short, literally fall short on a 4th and 2, which I agree with going for. Trevor ends up tucking the ball, running it left, and he either slips or kind of starts diving for it, and It's just an unfortunate play, man. He's so close to getting it. When you watched it live, you thought he for sure got it, and it was going to be a huge moment for the Jags, but you slow it down, you look at the replay, and they looked at that replay for a while. The shin hits down like just before they get it. He's touchdown, and just game of inches, man. They don't get it. Just a bummer of a play. I thought the play call was fine. They just don't get it. So they leave points on the board there. They aren't able to capitalize on the biggest mistake that the Bills made in this game. And it was a huge, huge reason that the game ended the way that it did. And the Bills respond right off of that. I pretty sure it was on that drive. I feel like I would have wrote something else down if it wasn't right then, but the Bills go all the way down, bounce back, and you get some impressive throws in there from Josh Allen. Brandon Cooks really stepped up in this game. Had one play that we'll talk about later that he just barely didn't catch. But Keon Coleman makes a huge play on that touchdown drive, catches it down the right sideline, makes a guy miss, and then they go with your vintage Josh Allen, QB, power zone into the end zone for a touchdown. So the Bills get the lead back right after that big swing that the Jags aren't able to take advantage of. And then, unfortunately, man, you get more of those Jaguars. Sorry to keep using the same phrase, but those vintage Jaguars miscues. Third down, it's mesh, it's open, and it looks to me like Washington, who was the miscommunication earlier, and man, I'm not here to bash on Washington. Parker Washington had an incredible game in this one. It was a big part of their second half, but it does seem like there was two costly miscommunications on him early. And this one, I don't really know how you get to the playoffs and you're not on the same page on this one. It's just mesh. Like, these guys have been running mesh since high school. And Parker Washington, who has plenty of slot wide receiver experience, is that second level hitch route, where you got two guys running crossers underneath. You usually they have a post or a wheel to one of the sidelines, and then you have a guy that's just going to be running a hitch route to the second level. So if those linebackers are distracted by the double crossing routes, that hitch route is there. The hitch route is there. Trevor Lawrence throws the hitch route, but Parker Washington runs a post or a skinny post. He keeps running. And Trevor throws it to kind of sit behind the linebacker, and they end up having a punt off of that. So I don't know why there's so many of these with the Jags. I would love if anybody has the access to the PFF charting on the incompletion type data, which I don't have this year. I would love to see where the Jags and Trevor Lawrence rank in terms of incompletions that are due to miscommunications. It feels like they have to be quite high there. But you get a couple costly ones in this game, to say the least. But they end up punting, and we're pretty close to halftime at this point. And they do get a little bit of a break where the Bills have a big completion, what looks like a big completion of Brandon Cooks right before half. He's just not quite able to keep that ball from rolling on the ground. They overturn it. And after that gets overturned, the Bills throw the ball short of the sticks, get a few yards, and they punt on 4th and short. And I think you're about within a minute to go here. But, you got Cam Little on the other side who can make a 70-yard field goal, and it's just something to keep in mind, man. The Bills played this one very close to the belt. It did obviously end up working out for them, but it's another moment where I'm like, man, okay, you're this Josh Allen Bills team, and you're trusting the defense instead of thinking with about 50 seconds left, about 40 yards to go. Josh Allen, who's incredible in 4th and short situations, you're not playing aggressive to go put those points on the board, but. They end up pinning the Jags back, and then the Jags do make an incredible effort to try to get a field goal here. Trevor Lawrence launches a nuclear missile over the middle of the field, and Parker Washington had a chance to make up for some of those miscues earlier. And he did. He makes a great leaping catch. Was a prelude to what he was about to be doing in the second half of this game. But an incredible effort by the Jags to run up there, get the spike, no penalty on them, but there is a penalty on the Bills who weren't able to get back in time. There's offsides on the Bills. They get another 5 yards out of it, but then they miss the field goal. Cam Little, who's been great this year, misses a 54-yard field goal and just missed opportunities in the first half for this Jags team, man. They just added up really quickly and proved really costly once you get to the second half, where they did play really well. But I did have a note on that play. It got me thinking, like, if you're a quarterback, I want to see an offense, like, look at that play, and I feel like you could get free plays or force a timeout out of the opponent if you had, like, a fire call from the quarterback where you complete a big pass. If he knows, like, an edge rusher just got, like, blocked to the sideline, or maybe he's trying to sub or something's happening, if you think you can run down the field and get a free play out of it and basically outrace the D-line, you could get, a free 5 yards or a free play, which is even more valuable to take a shot into the end zone, if you were able to implement that in as like a fire call. I don't know. It's just a thought. I like to think out of the box a little bit, but if you get a big completion and have a chance to do that, maybe. But anyway, let's go to the second half, because it's I didn't write it down, but I think it was 10-7 at half. Is that right? Probably check real quick. I got the game log on just so we're all on the same page with where we're at. Yes, missed field goal keeps it 10-7. So we're now at halftime. We're in the second half, and the Bills get the ball. And again, I'm just writing down what I saw, but again, super conservative procedure from the Bills. 3rd and 10, they throw the ball short of the sticks, and on 4th and 4, they kick a field goal from the 27-yard line to make it 13-7. And I'm like, again, you're not going to go for it? Like, dude, Josh Allen is so good in these moments. This whole game, I'm watching this, and I'm like, the Bills are going to regret not putting more points on the board. But total credit to Sean McDermott. If you're going to do that, your defense damn well better be playing well. And this was as good as I remember a Bills playoff defense shaping up. And they were getting after it up front. Their coverage was sound. Trey White was making plays. Like, they were playing really good defense. And you can really fast forward a decent bit in this game before it gets interesting after the Bills make that field goal. The Jags do end up getting a field goal on the ensuing drive. They get a stop. They force a punt. And now you have Trevor Lawrence with the ball back, down 13-10 right around the fourth quarter. And this is where the game just totally woke up. It went from a defensive slugfest to a bit of a shootout. So you get a huge drive from Trevor Lawrence, really wakes up here. He drills a beautiful 3rd down out route to Brian Thomas. There's another 3rd down on this drive where he kind of steps through the rush and hits Parker Washington. 5 plays later, he hits Parker Washington again on a 2nd and goal. Again, kind of sliding through pressure. Parker Washington, tight coverage in the red zone, great throw, even better catch. So Parker Washington really starting to make plays in this game, starting with that huge catch right before halftime. But then Josh Allen claps right back with a huge drive. He hits a missile over the middle of the field, I think to Kincaid, but I didn't write it down. A huge chunk play on that next drive. There's a 3rd and long where Josh Allen scrambles to get him right up close to the 4th down, and that's where they started going for it. They get the tush push or the QB sneak from him, and they cap that off with a really nice play call from Joe Brady on a fake screen wheel, not dissimilar to the one that worked for the Bears for a touchdown to Dalton Kincaid. So the Bears clap back. And then the Jags answer back on another touchdown drive. So now we're going back and forth and back and forth. This thing is really fun at this point. That drive was highlighted by a lot of big Travis Etienne catch and runs, as well as another big throw to Parker Washington from Trevor Lawrence. And now this thing's back and forth. We're in kind of shootout mode, kind of who's going to have the ball last mode. And Josh Allen takes over, down 4 points with 4 minutes to go. And you're like, you're kind of thinking about all those all those talk shows and all the narrative that I already kind of hit on here. Like, well, at the end of the day, here we are. It's Josh Allen needing a touchdown with 4 minutes to go to take his team further in the playoffs, and he delivered, man. He makes the biggest play of this game for him, and I would say probably the second best play a quarterback made this weekend, other than the Caleb Williams 4th and 8, where, and a shout out to Tony Romo, who I've seen getting a lot of hate this week. I get it, but Tony Romo did a really good job on this play, at least, highlighting how incredible of a throw Josh Allen makes on this game-winning drive, where, I mean, the O-line blows the protection on this play. And there's a delayed blitz from the Jags. I think it's Devin Lloyd gets through, but whoever it was, about to hit Josh Allen. And he spins a deep ball to Brandon Cooks, right? Where I have no idea how Josh Allen knew to throw that ball, because it's cover 3, it's off zone cover 3. And when you look at when Josh Allen throws the ball, like, he is putting complete trust in Brandon Cooks to win on a little stutter and go move to burn past this cornerback, because it's off zone cover 3. The free safety was off to the other side of the field, so it was one-on-one. He's trusting a one-on-one deep ball. I can only imagine this was one of those veteran things on the sideline that they saw on the Microsoft Surface, or that Cooks knew that he can get this cornerback to bite on a double move. And this was just playoff experience. Yes, Brandon Cooks has never played, well, he hasn't spent a lot of time with Josh Allen, but he's been in a lot of playoff games. I can just only imagine, and I'm curious if there was any talk about this in the post-game stuff, where they saw something that they knew they could get this. And this is one of those little moments where, like, playoff experience matters, you know? But that's all speculation. All I do know is that for Josh Allen to let that ball go when he did, because Brandon Cooks was not open yet. This was the definition of throwing with anticipation, and it's in a huge spot. I mean, let alone just not to take a sack on that play with the busted protection, because the guard on the delayed blitz started to double team with the center, and then the linebacker goes right through the open gap. So to not only not take a sack there, but to complete like a 35-yard deep ball that helps you eventually go take the lead, just an insane throw in the biggest of spots from Josh Allen. And then the Bills did a really good job for a little bit there of understanding there's like 3 minutes to go. We don't want to leave much time left on the clock. And they do their kind of Bills offense thing. Screens, Josh Allen runs, just kind of inching the ball forward and forward and forward. And then you get to this really interesting end of game circumstance that was really fun to just kind of speculate about. So Josh Allen kind of carries the defense on a QB sneak, on a 4th down QB sneak. And he kind of carries the entire defense down at the 1-yard line. And at first they called it a touchdown, and I tweeted that's best case scenario for the Jags, because you need that time. Like, this game's over. At that point, the Jags had one timeout left, 1st and goal at the 1-yard line against Josh Allen, who's getting all of these QB runs in these short yardage situations. And I tweeted, I was like, the Jags, without doubt, have to drag Josh Allen's big ass into the end zone or this game's over. Like, the Jags have to let them score here. And they did. Liam Cohen, smart, offensive-minded head coach, understands the situation. We're not getting a stop here. We would much rather have a minute to go with our timeout and a chance, only needing a field goal, by the way, with Cam Little. That's even bigger to keep in mind here, is for the Jags to get 20 yards and kick a 50-yard field goal with Cam Little to force overtime. And I just want to double check that that's what the score was, so that I don't regret that. But yeah, it was 27-24. So the Jags were like so happy that they were able to get the Bills into the end zone. And I'm sitting there like, At first, I was like, I would consider kneeing it if I'm Sean McDermott at the 1 yard line. Force the Jags to, oh shit, no, I gotta correct that. The Jags had no timeouts at that point. The Jags could not stop the clock because that would change things if they did have a timeout. But there's no timeouts left, so erase that for a second. But at first, I was like, I would consider kneeing it or just kind of like ducking down with Josh Allen at the 1 yard line. Let the clock run down to 20 yards, to 20 seconds left. And this is where the timeouts came into play. The Bills had all their timeouts. So they got plenty of time to do whatever they need to do, needing a yard to put this game ahead. If they just knee it, you again have the ball at the 1 yard line, 2nd and goal, and the Jags are down to 20 seconds left. But instead, they do sneak it into the end zone, and the Jags are literally pulling everybody into the end zone. Like, the Jags did the right thing there. Look, McDermott deserves some credit from this game because the defense played better than I thought they would, and I will give him that credit. But between the conservative nature of this entire game plan and that, it would have been so easy to fire Sean McDermott if the Jags ended up winning this game, dude. I'm just going to say it, man, because when you really think about it, it was inexcusable to score there. When you have had all of the 13-second drive and all of the crap that McDermott's dealt with over the years, I would love to see what the analytics say, but when you have Josh Allen and 3 plays to get in from the 1 yard line, as opposed to giving the opponent with the kicker who can make a 70-yard field goal a full minute to get a field goal to send the game to overtime, pretty egregious game management from Sean McDermott, in my opinion. It ends up working out because they do get the stop. But from a process perspective, and I know I'm coming off as this big McDermott hater, but I think a lot of Bills fans agree with me here and would have much rather seen them do what I'm describing. But the Jags get the ball, and unfortunately, Trevor attempts a tough contested throw over the middle of the field, not a super high percentage look. And even worse, it gets deflected and intercepted. That's the way I look at that game-ending interception from Trevor. The first pick was way worse. This one was like, I'd rather you find a better look on the play, but you don't expect that play to result in a interception either. So, bit of a lucky bounce for the Bills, a team that could use a lucky bounce or two in the playoffs after what they've endured. And they move on to play Denver. I'm just making observations as the Bills advance through the first round here. If they make that, I don't even want to say if they make that mistake against a better team, it costs them. All I know in my heart of hearts is that there's a very real outcome where the Jags win this game, and we're looking back on this and all these third downs where they're kicking field goals and throwing the ball short of the sticks on screen plays and butchering that at the goal line, and they lose this game. There are so many outcomes where it was questionable, but McDermott's defense played great. Only allowing 24 points in Jacksonville is more than acceptable, and all Josh Allen can ask for to do enough to win that game. And they do. And they go on, and they will now play the Denver Broncos, and it should be a very interesting game. I'm excited. As for the Jags, it's kind of an interesting balance, really, with some time to sit and think about this one, because I think on one hand, it's very easy to say they were better than expected. You add Travis Hunter into this thing next year, which I'm really excited about. First-year head coach. A lot of reasons to be excited about the Jags next year and think that they'll be back and to not be too devastated about this. Yet at the same time, they did have a lot of missed opportunities in this game, man, especially in the first half. not capitalizing on that big Bills mistake on the fumbled kick return was huge. The missed field goal before half, that bad bounce that just didn't go your way at the end. Couple different plays go a different way, and the Jags are advancing here. But, there's a lot of people kind of pointing out last year's Commanders, or I saw some people with, attaching Dan Campbell's quote about you just never know when you'll be back. I do think, rationally speaking, like Dan Quinn knew he was about to lose Ben Johnson and how great of a team he had losing in the NFC Championship or the second round. They were the top seed in the NFC, obviously. Super high on Super Bowl expectations compared to where the Jags were at in this one. And the Commanders especially, it's like, dude, that was an old-ass bad roster. That projecting regression was not that hard to do. The Jags are set up really nicely to be back. So you're hopeful, but definitely frustrated that they couldn't quite finish this one off. But excellent game. Jags brought it. Bills just, ultimately didn't make as many mistakes. And the ones they did make, they did enough to make them not count in the end, which is what so many of these playoff games come down to. But let's go ahead to our last good game here between the Niners and the Eagles. So, excellent football game again. Like I said, the Niners come out swinging in this ball game. Just a haymaker to begin the game, really. Nice little out and in kind of skinny post from Demarcus Robinson. And I just love the aggressiveness out the gate to go right at these cornerbacks that I do think, I think these cornerbacks are awesome. Quinyon Mitchell was a part of my first team All-Pro. And he had a really bad opening drive here and then settled in. But I love the Niners just from a philosophical standpoint. I think when you look at this Eagles defense, these cornerbacks can get a little bit comfortable sitting on underneath stuff, I think, especially when you think about this Eagles defense last year. Like, nobody really had the guts to challenge this team and challenge their corners vertically. And this wasn't a go ball or anything, but when you're in that off-zone style coverage and you get these double moves that can really hurt you with explosive plays, that's how you can really create some big plays against off-zone quarters, off-zone cover three. And that's what that opening play did. And I think it's just a great message and a great approach and great coaching to come out the gate and go with that play. And even if all it is sending a message that we're not afraid of you, that's great. But I think strategically speaking, it does stop these corners right away from, maybe they hesitate a split second more on sitting on some of these intermediate routes where all these big plays tend to come for the Eagles. And the Niners had a lot of success attacking the intermediate part of these zone coverages. So I just love the approach out the gate, great execution, beautiful throw, beautiful route. And they end up going down, punch it down. Saquon makes a huge catch over Quinyon Mitchell, and then they go right at Quinyon Mitchell again. Demarcus Robinson beats him on a slant for a touchdown. So just a haymaker shot to the chin to this Eagles defense to quiet them immediately. I love it. And then right after that, it was like everything I had predicted in this game felt like it was just going to come through anyway, because I was really afraid that this Niners defense was just going to get bulldozed by a healthy Eagles offensive line, Saquon, home game in the playoffs. And on that first drive for the Eagles, it was all Saquon, a couple quick throws from Hurts. I tweeted out, Saquon might go for 300 yards today, because that was my take going in. And man, was I wrong as this game played out, because that was about as much as Saquon was going to get all day. He had a couple other good plays in there, but I think he ended with like 89 rushing yards. I think he had about 60 on that opening drive. But the Eagles do miss the PAT there, so it's 7-6. 49ers end up punting against this Eagles defense, and then the Eagles get the ball back. They end up going for it on 4th and 2, but you get a really good defensive stop. Shout out to the rookie, stepping up in a big spot, someone I've doubted for this Eagles roster, but in a huge moment, you get slot cornerback Upton Stout, the undersized, scrappy Upton Stout, mid-round pick. All the talk about mid-round picks for this Niners front office and all that. But in a huge moment, 4th and 2, he's got to cover Devontae Smith on an out route, just your classic Eagles. They knew it was coming, right? The Eagles only run about 6 plays, but they ran your classic out and up concept. And Upton Stout was sitting on it, breaks it up, 4th down stop. So 49ers get the ball back, but the Eagles defense played really good in the first half of this game. So they get another stop. Eagles put together their best drive of the game after that. A little bit of everything, some good Hurts throws, some good runs, some good, moments from the running backs. And the Eagles go take a 13-7 lead. And for me, at least, I thought that was, again, a moment where the Eagles were going to start to take over this game. But the Niners answer right back. It felt like every time the Eagles did come up with something, the Niners found a way to clap back. So they get pretty early in that next drive there. I think it had to be their biggest play of the game. Jauan Jennings on a dagger route. Purdy hits him in stride, and Reed Blankenship's the free safety on this play. He needs to be there to get Jennings on the ground, but he's not able to close down on it. Jennings wins that angle, and he's like off to the races. Now, Jauan Jennings isn't that fast, so he eventually gets caught, but you get a huge, it had to be a 60-yard completion. I think they got about 40 yards run after the catch, and that gets them all the way down into Eagles territory, but the Eagles defense bends and doesn't break, and the Niners kick a field goal. So we're in kind of a frisky boxing match here, if you will. Next drive, Eagles get the ball. They get a good run on 1st down, but on 2nd and 4, in kind of a big moment in this game. I mean, every drive's a big moment in a playoff game, but they go back-to-back forced deep shots to A.J. Brown, and this becomes a big narrative coming out of this game, is A.J. Brown kind of going at it with Sirianni. And these 2 deep shots, this is pure speculation. And if you think I'm an idiot for even saying this, that's fine, but this is how I feel about it, and what I think probably happened here is, and you see the way Brown and Sirianni screaming at each other on the sideline not long after this, it only makes so much sense. I mean, there's no reason on 2nd and 4 to force 2 deep shots to A.J. Brown, but you gotta think A.J. Brown's saying, let me get mine. Where's my deep shots? I got to make an impact on this game. And this was the moment they decided, with nothing creative about it. That's what's crazy about this offense, is it so totally feels like just backyard football, where they're like, here's what we know. We know some basic football concepts. And, when you think it's your time to get your opportunity, we'll throw you a post route and a go ball. And we're not even going to really read what the coverage is or take a second to ask if you're open or look at anybody else if you're Jalen Hurts or have any schematic wrinkle to maybe give you a better chance of actually being open. It's just, nope, it's 2nd and 4. Oh, we got quarters coverage and there's 3 defenders tracking A.J. Brown. Yeah, we're going to launch it anyway. Next play, again, they do it again. They just take 3rd and 4, line them up on the outside, one-on-one, throw the go ball, and it's just a tough look. It's a pretty good ball from Hurts, but it was tight physical coverage, one of those plays where it's like when there's contact, it's hard to judge the accuracy of the throw, so the throw's out and away a little bit, but Brown's able to kind of extend and get his fingertips on it, but he doesn't quite reel it in, and you end up punting. And it's just like, God, you look at what's going on the other side of this game, schematically, compared to what the Eagles are doing. And it's like it's not even the same sport, which ends up being a big takeaway of mine from this game that we'll continue to talk about. But that's your first half, really. Just kind of a boxing match. Second half ensues, and it's really just defense for the majority of the third quarter. Not a whole lot of takeaways there, or notes. I don't think there was any turnovers, takeaways in the first 10 minutes. There might have been, I think that was it. Might have been a Purdy interception in there, but that really takes you to the second half. And this third quarter was mostly just a defensive back and forth. You have a Purdy interception in there. The Eagles don't break the scoring drought until 2 minutes left in the third quarter. And that was with a field goal. So you get 16-10, and we're basically on for the fourth quarter. Niners get the ball, and Shanahan had one in his back pocket, and he breaks out a brilliant trick play, reverse to Juwan Jennings, who was a highly recruited quarterback coming out, and a great arm, and he hits Christian McCaffrey for a go-ahead touchdown here, fourth quarter. And Reed Blankenship, again, who gave up that huge play to Juwan Jennings. So Juwan Jennings was getting the best of Reed Blankenship in multiple ways in this game as a receiver and as a passer. Reed Blankenship, a veteran safety, should know better on this play, especially I think he would have been there for the Philly special. But you see the reverse. He's in a position to run with McCaffrey, and he just lets him go, and he's wide open. So Reed Blankenship really was a 10-point swing in this game for not sticking with the receiver on the trick play. That wasn't, you see these reverse passes all the time. I'm just very surprised he didn't know to keep running as a veteran safety. After that play, I tweeted Reed's sunken ship instead of Blankenship, but huge play. Great play call by Shanahan. Again, the play calling in this game is just night and day from an offensive perspective. The Eagles stall after that. There were multiple holding calls that went against the Eagles in the second half of this game that did hurt their ability. But right after that go-ahead touchdown, kind of a big moment, top of the fourth quarter, you got a 3rd and 13, Jalen Hurts against a Niners defense that just, look, they're playing hard. They're doing what they can do. They have no pass rush. This is a defense that we saw the last 2 weeks just getting obliterated. And Jalen Hurts on a 3rd and 13, trailing in the fourth quarter. You can't make it up, man. He catches the snap. There's a little bit of a stunt, but there's no pressure. It's a brick wall at the line of scrimmage, perfectly clean pocket. And he quickly decides to panic, roll to the right, under no pressure at all. And once he gets out of the tackle box, that's when he invites pressure, and he throws the ball away. And this became an issue as this game went on, is Jalen Hurts just... The biggest advantage that the Eagles had in this game was the fact that the Niners were not going to get any pass rush. And the fact that he isn't taking advantage of these clean pockets here and again later in this game, it's to me the biggest difference in this game. And that's a spot where it's, okay, 3rd and 13 against the Niners defense. Is it an easy play to get that? No, but when you're not getting a pass rush, let's see how the play at least develops and if somebody comes open. But this is what Hurts was allowed to do last year when he's playing with a lead and an elite defense, that they're going to pin guys back and play great defense. And, ideally they get the ball back and their run game works better on the next drive. Last year, he did this all the time in the Super Bowl, but it didn't matter because they had a 2-score lead and everything else worked. But here, you're down in the fourth quarter. Your team needs you to do anything. And that's the definition of nothing. Bad quarterback play is what that is. So you waste the drive there. Again, holding call happens to knock them back to that spot, but you got to do what you can to overcome it, man. You look at the other side of the field and the way that Brock is creating and standing in clean pockets and converting a lot of these third downs in this game. It was night and day, the pocket management of these quarterbacks. And Brock had some turnovers. Brock wasn't perfect, but Brock was clearly the better quarterback in this game. But on that note, one of those interceptions does come 2 plays later. So right as you're wow, Jalen Hurts, horrible play, Brock Purdy makes one of his worst plays, and he gives it right back to Quinyon Mitchell. So the Eagles end up getting the ball right back in that spot, and they don't have to do much to then get a go-ahead field goal with not a whole lot of time left. So it's like, 19-17 at that point? But you do have Brock Purdy getting the ball with a chance to go get a game-winning drive with 6 minutes left. And that's where Brock Purdy totally redeems himself for the interception. It was a brilliant drive. From start to finish, the pocket movement was great. He was under pressure. He was stepping in and out of sacks. He was using his legs when he needed to. He was getting the ball on checkdowns where he needed to. Just a really good, efficient drive, multiple third down conversions, finding the right spot. And the touchdown to seal that drive off was really nice, man, where they put McCaffrey on the right side running back spot. You have a couple receivers off to the left. You're down by the red zone. And this is a spin on a pretty popular play that Shanahan runs a lot. LaFleur runs this a lot. I've seen it around the league since these guys have done this. But the idea is to create a little space down there when you have a good receiving back, is you take those left side receivers, kind of have them run crossing routes, over routes to hopefully take the corners with them, clear that out, and then you have the linebackers responsible for that running back kind of working against the flow of traffic, so you might get some natural rubs. But also when you have the running back on the opposite side of that, the linebacker might false step or think he's into pass protect. If he steps to the left, he might think he's into pass protect and lose sight of him. There's a number of things that can happen, but the running back steps immediately back opposite the flow of traffic. And every time I've seen this, it is straight to the flat. You're in a foot race with that linebacker who's working against the flow of traffic. You're trying to get out to the flat before them. And the running back reads that as well as he can. I think it's Nakobe Dean on the play. He reads it as well as he can. He actually outraces to the flat. And this is where I would love to hear if it was an option route from McCaffrey or if this was the intention of the play. But McCaffrey runs a whip route back inside off of that. And is wide open. And Purdy knows what he's doing. He just needs time for those receivers to clear out, to get McCaffrey one-on-one with that linebacker. And he does need to sense the pressure and avoid a sack and step up to do it. So the pocket movement, but staying within structure through the pressure. It was just high-level quarterbacking, high-level scheming, a tendency breaker, which is so important and what Kyle Shanahan is so great at. Just a brilliant moment to go take the lead, but Jalen Hurts gets his chance. Plenty of time. You got 4 minutes, maybe 3.5 minutes to go. You got all your timeouts, and a lot of opportunity to make people like me look wrong and go get this thing done against a Niners defense that, again, they just don't have a whole lot going on there. They just don't. They're playing hard. They're doing what they can to out-scheme you, but this is what, if Jalen Hurts is even half of what people said he was this offseason, you want to see him go do it here. And for a minute, he did. He starts the drive, makes a really good throw to A.J. Brown, and A.J. Brown drops it. And you're like, well, that's not how I want this to go. And I'm just very honest about where I'm at with Jalen Hurts at this point, so I don't really care what I say at this point. But as the Jalen Hurts hater, I'd rather he screws it up, right? And I can sit here and say, see, Jalen Hurts screwed it up. What I don't want is a drop kills the drive and he makes a good throw and it's well, okay, that was just someone else's fault. And that's what it looked like it was going to be like for a second. But to Hurts' credit, he makes up for A.J. Brown. Next play, 4th down, converts to Dallas Goedert. So he made one really good throw on this drive. But they end up getting down. You get some quick passes, some of that prevent defense crap. Which, if you're the Niners, I think you understand it a little bit more. But I don't know. A couple easy throws from Hurts. They get down to the red zone, and the Niners want to buckle down, play that bend, don't break defense. And you just get a brutally horrible sequence from Jalen Hurts. Like, everything wrong with Jalen Hurts is on display in this moment. First down. First and 10 from the 20. Clean pocket. Jalen Hurts tries to scramble up the middle for no reason, no pressure. He tries to scramble up the middle, walks into a sack. So it's now 2nd and 11. Second down. Perfectly clean pocket. Don't believe me? Go watch the play. And Tom Brady, credit to Tom Brady, did a great job calling out how bad this play was from Hurts. Perfectly clean pocket. He almost immediately bails right and throws the ball away. All right, so he has now sacked himself and thrown the ball away, and now you're on third down. Third down, he tries a tight window throw in between zone defenders. Not a bad look. Throw comes out a little bit wobbly, a little bit ahead of Smith. Smith has to overextend, surrounded by 3 zone defenders. He can't make the tough catch. We've seen Devonta Smith make that catch before. Unfortunately, he didn't do it this time. Was it a true drop? Debatable. But fourth down, they call 4 verts, which goes all the way back to their play calling issues and no creativity, but they just call 4 verticals. The Niners are all over it. From a clean pocket, Jalen Hurts forces it into triple coverage. And the game's over. And it's just like, wow, that wasn't even close to... I mean, I guess the Smith catch was close, but again, that was not like a great look on the Devonta Smith catch. It would have been a hell of a catch from Smith, and he would have gotten murdered after the catch. But that's kind of the theme on the Eagles this year. At the same time, is like Hurts isn't that different. It's just the people around him aren't making these super plays all the time. There's been moments where Smith and Brown have made some super plays this year, but they haven't done it as consistently as last year. And you're just left with a very conservative quarterback that doesn't elevate, that the Eagles feel like they have to run a very simple system for. And whether you feel that the coaches should feel that way is up for interpretation. Obviously, there was the big LaShawn McCoy quote that came out where he's obviously still very connected in that locker room. A lot of the people in that Eagles building feel like they just can't do a lot of the stuff that, for example, you see in San Francisco in this game because Jalen can't handle it. And to be honest, you watch Jalen Hurts' film from the first 4 weeks of last season when Kellen Moore tried to install a lot of that stuff, and it was true. He played horrible in that stretch. I made the damn video about it based on that stretch of play. So Jalen Hurts, I don't think was egregious in this football game. It's just he kind of played like a backup quarterback would be expected to play, where he made some easier throws, tried some deep balls, didn't connect on it, threw the ball away and scrambled out of some clean pockets and left a lot of meat on the bones of a lot of plays. But largely just kind of tried to avoid mistakes and hope that the rest of the team could carry. And when they needed him in the fourth quarter, he held them back or didn't project them forward. So that was a big takeaway from this game, is Jalen Hurts is kind of exactly what I've been trying to say he is. But there's more to talk about here than just Jalen Hurts. And I want to come back to the Niners side of things for a second. Like, just what an unbelievably impressive run that this Niners team is on at this point. Now winning a playoff game, winning as many regular season games as they did. Critical injuries, obviously. And a roster that, on top of those injuries, like, had a lot of question marks from a talent perspective. I mean, man, there are so many holes on this team, but with the way that Kyle helps scheme things up to take advantage of his best players, and by the way, we didn't even mention George Kittle pops his Achilles in this game, but obviously some very creative ways to use McCaffrey, the trick play. but tapping into a unique skill set where Juwan Jennings does have a good arm. Like the way that Shanahan is able to get the most out of this offense with Brock Purdy, it's outrageous. And a defense that didn't make really a whole lot of critical mistakes. I mean, they did what they could to kind of loop and run stunts and get to Hurts where they could. They didn't get a lot of pressure, but they tackled hard. And slowed down Saquon Barkley, forced Jalen Hurts to beat them, and he obviously couldn't do that. But this is why I picked Kyle Shanahan for Coach of the Year. I feel very good about that pick. This is a very easy reference point as we can now kind of marry this to talk about the Eagles' end of their season here. Easy reference point, this football game, for how much coaching matters. And I don't know if we will ever see, I'm being dramatic here, but I'm being hyperbolic here, but I kind of believe it. I don't know that we will ever see a playoff game between, a bigger disparity. If this is like a meter, and you have a roster talent meter and a coaching meter. I don't know if we'll ever see a playoff matchup where one team's coaching meter is so high versus so low for the other team. And a roster talent plus health. That's the other thing, dude. The Eagles were like 100% healthy in this game. Not the Niners. And the Niners lost George Kittle on top of all this in the second quarter. So roster talent being way up for the Eagles and way down for the Niners, yet for the Niners to still win this game. Unbelievably impressive. And Brock Purdy deserves a lot of credit too. He threw a couple picks. It was not a perfect game, but he did enough against a very, very challenging Eagles defense to go against. And we'll see how far the Niners can go. I'm not saying I'm picking them to win this week, but I'm certainly done doubting them. I doubted them this week. I had the Eagles as my favorite bet this week. I thought they would run all over the Niners. I thought that the Niners offense would struggle a lot more than they did. And I obviously was wrong to do that. But I'm definitely done doubting the Niners as we move forward. And Fred Warner just might be coming back, but of course Kittle popping that Achilles is brutal. I don't need to explain that to you, not just for this season, but you're going to have questions about him at his age heading into next year. How well can he respond from this? So that one really sucked to see that on top of all the injuries they've already endured. But at least you do get a playoff win out of it to feel a little bit better about it if you're a Niners fan, and we'll see if they can keep it going. As for the Eagles, no surprise this afternoon, it was announced offensive coordinator changes are coming. I'm hard on Jalen Hurts, but I think there is more that can be done. The lack of creativity is such bad coaching that somebody should be able to do a better job with this and lift up Hurts a little bit more. So I'm excited to see who they get. I think Brian Daboll could do a really good job here. I've said that before. And I even had a take on Twitter. I was like, if you're able to land Brian Daboll, I'd almost just fire Sirianni now and promote Daboll as the head coach, because I do think those guys could butt heads a little bit. And if things do go well, it gets a little harder to fire Sirianni after things are going well. And I don't want to lose Daboll and end up back in square one. So that's just assuming it's Daboll, but that really does feel like a great fit because his scheme is just a better version of what they try to do with Hurts, where it's a lot of shotgun running and 2x2 formations and that kind of stuff. But they also can do more heavy personnel, find ways to mix in a more balanced under center offense that Hurts did some good stuff this year in. So we'll see what they do at offensive coordinator. But man, things don't get easier for this Eagles team. They don't. They have a lot of roster building challenges ahead of them, underratedly so. So Jalen Hurts' contract keeps going up and up and up. He was a $13 million cap hit last year, which was nothing. I think he got to $23 million this year. He'll be up into the $30 million range this year. So you're actually paying Jalen Hurts now You've got Lane Johnson. This team just hasn't been the same offensively without him. His health and his durability are going to be major questions at his age as you look forward. You have some guys that need to be paid. Jalen Carter is going to want some money soon. Jordan Davis is going to need some money. You have pending free agents that were really good for this team. Dallas Goedert was awesome in this game and really good this year. I think there's a lot of teams that would want Dallas Goedert. And we'll see what happens with him. But Jalen Phillips, who they acquired, is also a free agent. So you've got even more players kind of set for free agency. You have A.J. Brown. What is he at this point? Can you get him back to what he's been in years past? Has he regressed? Is he a locker room cancer? Does he need to go? That's a question mark. And this team has an unbelievable amount of voided year money in future seasons. And they can continue to steal money from future seasons and continue to work around this thing. But there is eventually a limit to how much you can do. And I will just say this, they have a lot less wiggle room now than they did this last offseason and certainly the year before that. So Howie is a god amongst men in terms of how good of a general manager he is. He's going to have to continue to draft well to fill some of these holes that are starting to pop up. And going to have to keep finding a way to work some cap magic. But the Eagles aren't going to just go away, but the roster construction is only going to get more and more challenging for them. And when you have a deadbeat head coach, I mean, look, if you're an Eagles fan still defending Nick Sirianni, there's not a head coach in the league that I think we all unanimously agree needs to go, but they won't fire him because he just won a Super Bowl last year and they were still a playoff team this year. But Nick Sirianni does nothing for this team, absolutely nothing. And you have a quarterback now that is at best the 18th best quarterback in the league. I mean, seriously. Let's run through it. Let's do it. These are all quarterbacks I think you're taking unanimously without hesitation over Jalen Hurts. I'm just going to start in the NFC North because that's where my mind works, is clockwise starting in the NFC. Jordan Love, yes. Jared Goff, yes. Caleb Williams, yes, at this point. Dak Prescott, easily. Jaden Daniels, I would take over Jalen Hurts. So that's 5. I'll stop it there. I'm not ready to put Dart over him, but we could get to that point. In the South, I think Bryce and Baker are close. Let's leave them off for now, but you can certainly make a case for either of those guys right now, especially Baker, who's just a little more volatile. But let's say he's better than all the NFC South guys. You go to the West, Stafford, yes. Darnold, yes. Purdy, yes. I don't know how you could possibly watch this game and think Jalen Hurts is the better quarterback. All right, so that's 8 in the NFC. And that was not including Baker Mayfield, which I think a lot of people would probably include. But then you go to the AFC. Burrow, Lamar. Yep, that's the AFC North. And then Drake May, Josh Allen. That's 4. AFC South, you got Trevor, you got Stroud is coming off a bit of a shitter. Let's leave Stroud off. But I mean, I would personally take Stroud more, but I don't think it's unanimous, I'm going to leave Daniel Jones off, especially because of the Achilles. I'm forgetting someone, though, right? Oh, Cam Ward. I'm not ready to put Cam Ward over him. We could get there. But you go west, you got Mahomes, you got Herbert, you got I would take Bo Nix over Hurts. I think they're very similar, but I think Bo Nix is a much better passer. And honestly, I think Bo Nix is probably a better scrambler at this point. So you got 8 and 8. You got 8 better in the NFC and 8 better in the AFC, and that's with some guys like Stroud and Baker kind of leaving them off. So at best, you're talking about you have the 17th best quarterback, and I mean, of all the remaining head coaches, I'm only putting maybe Zach Taylor behind Nick Sirianni. But even then, I think Zach Taylor is at least an offensive mind that does some good stuff occasionally, but it's just not a great place to be for the Eagles. But we shall see. All right, so I am going to go a little bit faster for these last couple of games, which I think is justified. I mean, pretty ugly football games, and I'm not going to go like play for play with these last couple games because it was a lot of defense, and it's just not the smooth, convenient way to talk about these games anyway. But let's start with the Chargers-Patriots game. The Patriots win a defensive battle, just kind of a sloppy, weird game that was a defensive slugfest for the first 3 quarters. It was a 9-3 game in the fourth quarter. And Drake May really turned it on late, especially. But I want to start on the Chargers side of things. Look, Justin Herbert just wasn't good, dude. Like, he was really bad in this football game. And I think where the narrative has landed out of this is like, of course he was bad. Look at that offensive line. We've seen this all year long where like certain games he's under countless pressure and there's just no chance. And I have said in those games, like basically he's off the hook, right? Like the pass rush is so bad. He's at these like 70% of his dropbacks are pressured. He really has no chance. I have said in some of those games, like, it's hurting his ability when he does get opportunities to settle down in the pocket and play great in some of those games, but really not being too hard on him. I'm going to be hard on Justin Herbert in this game because I think a lot of people remember some of those games in recent years and some of the hits he took in the fourth quarter of this game, where he did take some really nasty hits on some plays that were really bad pass protection by his offensive line. And I'm obviously not saying Herbert is the only reason the Chargers lost this game. I hope you understand that. But I think Herbert could have been the reason they won this game. And I think a lot of those bad plays of pass protection, there was probably about 4 of them, specifically in the fourth quarter, where on those individual plays, Herbert didn't have much of a chance. But for the first 3 quarters of this game, and even in plays in the fourth quarter, this wasn't one of those games where Justin Herbert is under like constant pressure and has nothing to do. There were so many missed opportunities in this game. An unbelievable amount of missed opportunities where he's either bailing out of clean pockets, doing his best Jalen Hurts impersonation. I counted at least 5 times where he's clearly got a clean pocket and he's wasting it. Now I get it. He's been under a lot of pressure this year. He's getting some of this pocket trauma. I can understand where he gets to that point, but that's also something I've always been critical of Herbert on. So it's hard to know exactly where that lands. But what I do know is I watched the film, and you can't be just walking into sacks, wasting clean pockets, and get all the excuses in the world that your offensive line's bad when it's on you for so many of these sacks and pressures where he's walking into pressures. And then there's also plays where he gets perfectly reasonable protection and he's just holding the ball way too long and just not giving guys opportunities, where he's either holding the ball too long, taking sacks, or when he does throw it, he's like not even giving guys a chance. So some of the plays I wrote down, roll out to the right where he was under like, it was like a 3-second pressure and he rolls out to the right. Good job to like extend the play. And hell, he got 8 yards out of the play. It was a positive play from Herbert. But if you watch the all 22 on it, he's rolling to the right in perfect horizontal line with him, about 10 yards right in front of him. And it's not like there's a bunch of other receivers that he's looking at and surveying the field. Ladd McConkey is wide ass open into the third level of the defense. I genuinely don't know how Justin Herbert doesn't see him on this play. And there was nobody, and this is early in the game, could have legitimately changed this game. Because I think there's a pretty good chance Ladd McConkey, with what we know about him, with that much space, pretty good chance he actually scores a touchdown on that play. If nothing else, the Chargers did end up having to punt on that drive. They're at least getting 3 points, but horrible. Like, I do not understand how he did not see that. There is a play later where he steps up left. Ladd McConkey is open on the wheel route, same side of the field. Herbert throws it, and he underthrows it by like 3 yards. McConkey has to like work back into the defense, and it falls incomplete. Not an easy play, but Herbert makes that throw a lot. There's another kind of similar play where he's rolling right, and he has to kind of throw it off his back foot a little bit. It's like a 15-yard throw to Kamani Vidal, who, again, scramble drill slips behind the defense. But Vidal's open by 3 yards, and Herbert didn't even give him a chance. Like, I expect Justin Herbert, with his arm strength, when that is his selling point, is his unbelievable arm, to make those throws. When I see Drake May making those throws, when I see Jordan Love and Caleb Williams making those throws, I see Brock Purdy making those throws. It's, yes, you're going a little bit above and beyond, but that's why you're in the conversations that we have about you. And he missed multiple of those. There's, in the comeback effort late in this game, there's a third down out route, clean pocket, wide open Keenan Allen on an out route. Herbert just dirts it, throws it short. There's a couple other plays where he's taking shots down the field and it's either underthrown or it's sailing out of bounds. There was a play earlier in the game where he got very lucky trying to do too much on that ugly looking like shovel pass attempt that ends up not hurting them. But easily in a 3-3 ball game, Justin Herbert has to just eat that. Easily could have been an ugly turnover, a defensive touchdown, absolutely the definition of a turnover-worthy play that he got away with. Ugly, ugly football. This was bad. Now, like I said, there's some drives in the fourth quarter that he didn't have a chance. There's a third down drop by Keenan Allen late in this game that was terrible. I've always said third down drops are turnovers. It was a 9-3 game in the fourth quarter because of the efforts of this defense. And I do think the play calling is a disaster. There's a lot of plays where they're just not, just like Greg Roman has done really time and time again in the playoffs, he's just not a great schemer. And a lot of these coulda, shoulda, woulda throws are either Herbert not giving a guy a chance on like a tight ball down the sideline, or where he does have to create out of structure and there is stuff to be taken advantage of there that he's not doing. But there's just no, like, there's so few, like, easy buttons for Herbert. So, again, I'm not here to say that they lost this game because of Justin Herbert. I think if you get an average quarterback performance, the Chargers still lose this game. But I will say this, they got their ass kicked because of Justin Herbert, and they could have won this game if Justin Herbert plays like he has in other games this season. That's what's so frustrating about this. I do still think Justin Herbert's a top 10 quarterback. I ranked him 5th coming into the year. I know what he's capable of. He's capable of elevating teams at times. And this was a game that I think Justin Herbert, and some of the ways that some of the games he played this year, whether it's the Chiefs game or I'm drawing some blanks here, but there's been games where Herbert has made exceptional plays, been exceptionally accurate, that he just didn't bring the best version of himself to the playoffs. And when that keeps happening, you are going to turn into the if man for me, man. Like, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times. You know how the J. Cole saying goes. That's kind of where I'm at with Herbert, where it's like I will respect what he's capable of any given Sunday, his talents. I am not saying the Chargers need to move on from Justin Herbert or anything like that, but until he actually gets to the playoffs and doesn't genuinely shit the bed, because this was exactly what happened last year, where it's like, yeah, there's a lot of ugliness around him, but he compounded it into a disaster. So until he plays like I know he's capable of in the playoffs, I'm going to have to hold that against him and call him the if man. So that to me was the biggest takeaway in this game. We can talk about the Patriots side of things, who are the winners here. Obviously, the defense played great. Mike Vrabel, the biggest winner from this game. This was a team win above all. Defense was great. I thought the offensive... It was a hard-fought game from the Chargers defense. And the fact that Jesse Minter is going to be gone, he's going to be the Ravens head coach by all likelihood. That's a little scary if you're a Chargers fan. But they gave it all. They gave it their all from the Chargers defense. Pass rush was pretty good. Coverage was pretty good. But the Patriots, I thought, did some good stuff with the screen game and the run game. And defensively and special teams wise, especially, they were extremely sound. This was what a Bill Belichick team would have played against a tough opponent in the playoffs. This felt in many ways like a Tom Brady playoff win where the quarterback was solid. Drake May, largely, I think we saw a lot of good processing plays, like kind of, I guess point guard or just like taking what's there, keeping drives alive, making a lot of just solid plays. He made a few excellent plays. He had a big scramble before half, which was great. Set up a field goal. And then to put this game away late, Drake May made some awesome throws. There was a field goal drive where he hits a third down dig route to Hunter, which was awesome. And then he hits the big shot play to Keyshawn Boutte, which was his biggest throw of the day down the left sideline. So that helped him get a field goal up 9-3. And then he hits the touchdown to Hunter Henry later, where he slides in the pocket and throws really nice touch on the fade. So made some throws. There was some mistakes. He had 2 fumbles, kind of both, I would say, rookie moments that I really hope he cleans up immediately. I think he's capable of being one of these quarterbacks that quickly learns from some of these mistakes. Multiple fumbles in this game where he's just trying to do too much, where he really should know that he's got guys like right on his ass, and especially in a defensive game like this, like you got to just kind of let the play die. But he has a fumble earlier in the game that I think did end up in a turnover, and then there was another one in the fourth quarter that actually really could have been costly, where again, he's trying to do too much. He gets strip sack fumbled, and then Jared Wilson, who allowed the sack to begin with, has like a heroic fumble recovery at midfield. And that could have been a spark that the Chargers needed to get back in this game. So like he had that, and then he did overthrow the tight end for a wide open touchdown in the fourth quarter that they ended up getting a field goal there instead of a touchdown. So there was some negatives in there for Drake May. But again, against a great defense, he made some good plays. He did his thing. This was just a great team win by the Patriots and another big check in this season for the Patriots, where I still like we're still learning, like, and we're going to learn throughout these playoffs. It's a unique team where you have this proven coach that's done it somewhere else, that's coming back to New England. You have this breakout quarterback that we're still learning about. You have a roster that is really shaped up to be quite balanced. There's no reason this team, after kind of checking the playoff win box, being such a well-rounded team and getting a win like this, there's no reason they can't run the AFC and ultimately win the Super Bowl this year. So huge for them to carry on that mission. Couple of great defensive plays I wrote down from Christian Gonzalez and Milton Williams. I think the 2 best players on this team, other than Drake May, both had great games. So you want your best players to show up, especially when you're a team that doesn't have a ton of stars. So the one that you do have, the ones that you do have in Gonzalez and Milton Williams, great to see them have game-changing plays. Ramondre Stevenson, one of your highest paid players, has had a rough year, but he showed up big time for this team. And great to see it for the Patriots. Excited to see them now take on this Texans defense. It's going to be probably a somewhat similar looking game, honestly. So at least they've kind of had this experience to kind of basically find a way to win and put a team away like this. So I do want to finish with some finishing thoughts on the Chargers. Like they're just going to have some questions next year. You obviously feel good about getting those tackles back. There's reasons to be excited. Realistically, this Chargers team was going to have a hard time going through the playoffs and getting it done. And I think a part of me as a Chargers fan is like, we'll get the tackles back. We're changing offensive coordinators. We're going to get Ladd McConkey back in the slot and get Keenan Allen out of there. Like, we're going to be cooking with gas next year. And I think that's really exciting. But there are questions. Minter is, in my opinion, gone. I think he will be the Ravens head coach. You've got this idea that all these AFC quarterbacks are coming back, and the AFC, I think, is going to be even better next year than it was this year, on top of all of these breakout teams like the Jags and the Patriots, the Broncos in a certain way. So like you're just going to have some questions. You got to find out if the new offensive coordinator is going to work. You're going to have to prove that your defense can overperform in the way that it has with Jesse Minter. And look, I just want to say this. There are some shades of when John Harbaugh when John Harbaugh lost Mike Macdonald. I'm not going to predict that this happens necessarily, but you can pretty easily see a world where Minter goes and is a great head coach, ironically for the Ravens most likely. Your defense takes a step back and you're left with a head coach that doesn't bring as much to the table after he already came in and like created this super culture. Once the super culture has been created, you kind of hit a ceiling there. And even in this game, I do want to call out some very conservative decisions from Harbaugh that I think also hurt the Chargers' ability to maybe win this game. It probably wouldn't have made a difference, but they, early in this game, punt on a 4th and 2 inside the 50-yard line. I thought that was stupid. And then later in this game, they kick a field goal on 4th and 2 at the goal line because earlier in the game, they did go for it on 4th and goal at the goal line. And that's just bad process. That's just not good analytically minded thinking on 4th downs. The idea on 4th downs is that you stick to a consistent process. If you're going to decide to go for it on 4th and 2s, which you should in those situations, you have to understand that it's not always going to work, but it's very similar to blackjack, where if you've got a 16 and you're facing a high card, you got to just do the same thing, because what you don't want to do is increase added variance. What you do, and this is pretty mathy, but you do know if you stay and make the same decision every time, sometimes it'll work for you, sometimes it won't. If you try to get cute and say it's going to work this time and it's not going to work this time, that's when you can really run into some trouble. And in the case of the Chargers, that might have been a big point swing in this game. So I didn't like that from a process standpoint. So I'm not out on Jim Harbaugh. I like what he's done, obviously, and they've really proved more often than not that they actually win some games like this. So I'm not trying to let the takeaway here be that I'm out on Jim Harbaugh. It's just when you have a coach like this that's kind of the CEO, we know that the downside of that comes when you eventually start losing coordinators. And that's when that's going to start happening this year. So we're going to have to see what happens there. And then you're just going to have questions about, I think you have more questions about Justin Herbert being a Super Bowl quarterback when he honestly looks like he gets the jitters and turns into a different quarterback when he gets to the playoffs to me. And that's just not where you want to be. So let's go ahead and move on. Big dub for the Patriots. Chargers, I probably shouldn't have picked them to win. Probably could have seen something like this coming, but it was worse than you hoped for, certainly. All right. Texans, Steelers. sorry if you sat around for 2 hours and want the same thorough, detailed breakdown that we got on some of these earlier games. That's not going to happen for me for this game. This was not a good football game. It was very clear from the very beginning that we are watching the best defense that we have seen since that Broncos defense carried Peyton Manning's old ass to his second ring. And it was quite ironic. I've always wanted for Aaron Rodgers, knowing that he's not what he used to be. I've always wanted this miracle world, whether it was with the Jets when he first got there, or even maybe here with Pittsburgh, though I didn't think it was really going to happen. I would have loved to see Aaron Rodgers get his old ass carried to a Super Bowl in the way that the young CJ Stroud might be getting carried to a Super Bowl right now. Because this was just no contest. And it was very clear from the beginning that the Steelers just couldn't move the ball, man. They had a few good runs in there. And then, I mean, man, they had one big opportunity for a big play, and DK Metcalf drops the ball. I don't know if he was rusty, having not played for 3 weeks or what, but that was the only chance the Steelers had to maybe keep this game close enough where you scrap it out in the end with your typical Mike Tomlin black magic, but it was not going to be enough, man. I mean, Rodgers can't move. You're in there with a backup left tackle and a bad offensive line anyway against this edge rush duo. I mean, the other play that the Steelers had a bit of a chance to do something was kind of the perfect example of why this was never going to happen, because they get DK Metcalf, burns deep, he's open, and shout out to Troy Aikman on the broadcast, who I like Joe and Troy, by the way. Just a quick shout out to them. But they immediately saw it, and they show the replay, and it's like, man, Aaron Rodgers, first read, DK Metcalf, he's running a go ball. And the one thing this Houston defense can do, which we saw obviously on tape a couple times in this game that just the Steelers didn't execute, the Texans secondary can get porous and bust coverages and get beat over the top. I think these, like Stingley, can be a little bit of a lurker and get beat over the top at times. So I'm going to keep an eye on as Houston moves forward against better passing games. But Rodgers saw it, right? And he's winding up. He's ready to let this thing go. But he has no time because Danielle Hunter destroys Troy Fautanu and sacks Rodgers before he can throw the ball. So the two real opportunities you're going to get against Houston with the style that they play a couple times a game where you get an opportunity for big plays, and you just got to execute on those when you get those opportunities. And on one play, the Troy Fautanu got destroyed, which will happen against this edge rush duo, and then on another, DK Metcalf just dropped it, and that was it. I mean, this game was over at that point. It didn't matter what CJ Stroud did in this game because, I mean, that was bad. I think Garrett was texting me during this game, co-host for the weekly preview show, and he was like, that's, I think, the worst game Stroud's ever played. And I agree. Like, that was, CJ Stroud was so bad. I had a tweet going around. I was like, little known fact, the J in CJ Stroud actually stands for Justin Herbert. But dude, Stroud was so bad, and I've defended Stroud, but he's going to have to play better, I think. I mean, maybe this defense really is just going to carry CJ Stroud here. But dude, he had happy feet in the pocket. He was turning the ball over. He had the interception down at the goal line. He did, you compare him to whatever Aaron Rodgers was able to do in this game with no chance, and you're like, well, he was better than Aaron Rodgers, but Stroud had a lot more opportunities. He did make, as the game went on, he got more opportunities. He hit some crossing routes. There was a couple nice throws. There was a couple nice plays in there for Stroud at least. And as long as they can get those with a defense performance like this, you're going to be able to win. But I do think if Stroud can't play better moving forward, the Texans could run into some troubles. It did remind me a little bit of last year, though, because Stroud was also really bad in the Chargers playoff game last year, and that didn't matter because the Texans defense did this. And then the next week, CJ Stroud did play way better in Arrowhead and gave the Texans a chance on a day where their special teams was actually a disaster. So hopefully if you're a Texans fan, Stroud kind of got the jitters out of his system. They win the game in a blowout, and you'll be fine. Like I said, I think this was probably the worst game of CJ Stroud's career, and he's now got a good opportunity to kind of brush that off and change what we remember about CJ Stroud in these playoffs. But it's turning into an interesting narrative for sure, is that I was disappointed in Stroud. I thought he should have played a lot better based on how I think about him as still kind of like a top 10 quarterback, and that feeling on him is very much fading on Stroud, but we'll see what he can do moving forward with a great opportunity here. Nico Collins gets hurt with a concussion, probably going to miss this week. That sucks, but they do have some guys stepping up. Great to see Christian Kirk in a big spot. It's had kind of an interesting, largely quiet season. I do like these rookies. So hopefully that's not a backbreaker. I think the world of Nico Collins. So that's definitely a loss. But that's really what I have on this one. Obviously, probably the last game of Aaron Rodgers' career. So this show's gone on for a while. I'm not going to spend time getting sentimental here, but obviously you guys know I grew up a huge Aaron Rodgers fan and is a big reason why I do what I do here on this channel. So don't love seeing him go out like that. I don't think it was his fault. I don't think really any quarterback was going to stand in there with this team and do a lot unless you're a super mobile guy that can do something against this pass rush, which is why Drake May against this team is going to make things interesting. But, probably it, especially with Mike Tomlin kind of calling it quits. I would imagine Rodgers isn't going to come back with coaching uncertainty. I know Tomlin was a huge reason Rodgers went there to begin with. So it definitely feels like that's the route we're going. And then it certainly was time for Mike Tomlin to do what he's doing here, which is to take a step back. Sounds like he's not going to coach this year. And he's just going to take some time off. The crazy thing about Tomlin is he's younger than you think. Because he's been coaching since 2007. But he's only, he's 53. So he can really have a second era of Mike Tomlin and refocus, kind of assemble a staff, do some media stuff, go on vacation. He's earned it. And I think it's best for both parties. I think for the Steelers, they've had this endless cycle where Tomlin's too good of a coach for them to ever have that reset moment that this team has needed for a long time. Since the Killer Bees and Big Ben retired, it's been kind of similar to New Orleans after Drew Brees, where it's just you can only squeeze so much out of it until you hit rock bottom and really retool this thing. And maybe Tomlin does just come back with the Steelers after a much-needed reset year. But it will be interesting to see, what is the full direction of the Steelers? Do they continue down this path without Mike Tomlin? I think that's still possible. Where they look at this defense, and someone on Twitter pointed out, man, can't you just see Brian Flores, who was here a couple years ago, being the natural replacement? What could he do with this defense? I'd be lying if I said I wasn't intrigued. And you got Arthur Smith there, who's not a favorite in Pittsburgh, but I think that's a capable, strong-minded offensive coach to pair with Brian Flores. What could Flores do with this defense? I would love to see it, certainly with that D-line. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see just how much of a sort of step back do the Steelers want to take, or is this not really going to change their philosophy? I wouldn't be terribly surprised one way or another. But for Mike Tomlin, I will be patiently awaiting his return. This to me feels very similar to Andy Reid and Philadelphia, where I still think very highly of Mike Tomlin. I think a lot of these teams have still overachieved based on who they've been able to get at quarterback and all that, but it just was time. It has run its course, which really applies here. And I know people are going to say, well, why are you so low on John Harbaugh? Well, John Harbaugh's had Lamar Jackson, and John Harbaugh has had all these devastating playoff losses. I don't look at the Steelers' playoff losses as devastating. It's just this is a team that never should have been there to begin with for the last 4 or 5 years. John Harbaugh's 60-something and is a special teams background, whereas I still think Mike Tomlin brings some of that defensive prowess to the table. It's faded in recent years a little bit, but I just think there's a lot more to get out of a Mike Tomlin coaching regime than John Harbaugh. But it sounds like it's going to be a year anyway. So, hell of a show, you guys. Definitely went longer than I expected, but I'm glad we covered everything I needed to from an unbelievable round of Wild Card Weekend. I can't promise that I do this after every round just because we have college showcase games, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl. I've got a lot of scouting that I want to get to before I get there so that I'm really ready to go. So I can't promise that I take a full day to do this again next week, but if we get another hell of a weekend of football with a bunch of takes to get to like I did today, I'm going to have to do it. But I really hope you guys enjoyed, and I'm going to be coming right back as soon as possible with my Coaching Carousel show, which is going to be a hell of a show this year. So that'll probably be out around this time tomorrow is my guess there, but really hope you guys enjoyed. Please do hit that like button on the way out if you have not done so already. And we'll talk soon. Cheers.